channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Time is running out in the hunt for the Titanic sub. As the Coast Guard says, he has hope he can save those on board.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. It's bright and early on this Thursday, the 22nd of June, 6 a.m, just after the solstice. Shortest day yesterday.
So
longest day.
It's downhill all the way.
Except
this is this not the first day of summer or
something like that?
No, but even though the days are getting shorter.
Yeah. Well, I like that theory. I'll go with it.
No. We like the days longer.
Oh.
So we're running out of light.
Yes, but summer is just arriving. We'll go with that.
Yeah, but it's quite ironic, isn't it, that this is regarded as summertime. Like, for instance, if you watch the nature programme on BBC Two, it's called Spring Watch.
But at the moment?
Yes.
And it doesn't feel like spring anymore.
It's summer.
Spring has sprung.
The grass is green. I wonder where Isabel's been. We'll show you where she's actually been, where her and I were yesterday later on in the programme. Leading the news this morning, what have we got?
The search for the missing Titan submersible reaches a critical moment. Estimates are suggesting the air supply on board could run out at around 10 a.m. and a French robot sub that can dive to 6,000 metres below sea level has arrived in the area and could be the last hope for those on board.
Warnings that a recession is now inevitable as the Bank of England prepares to hike interest rates for the 13th consecutive time today. The rise will pile more pressure on homeowners, with predictions it could increase as much as 0.5%.
The Foreign Secretary has said the UK would be supportive of a plan to help Ukraine join NATO as he attends the Ukraine Recovery Conference in London. And we'll be speaking to James Cleverly a little bit later on in the programme.
The Women's Ashes gets underway today. We'll find out if England have what it takes to beat Australia.
See, we can have another go with that one, can't we? Chelsea fire sale begins, and Andy Murray has been disrespected by Wimbledon.
Oh yes, there's a big mural done, isn't there? Big picture. Big mural. And Ian on it. So we're going to show you that later on in the programme.
Also, we're asking, will it be storms or sunshine? Your forecast will be in our programme a little bit later on.
For many, but not for all, temperatures will be shooting up over the next few days. How hot will it get? I'll have the full details in the weather forecast coming up soon.
Isabel's just said to me, it's not a mural, it's a mural.
I don't know the story.
But in Coronation Street,
right.
what's their names? What are the names? I forgot what the names are, but anyway, Hilda Ogden, for instance, she had a big picture, wallpaper behind her in her house.
Right.
Hilda and Stan, and they called it a mural.
Right.
But it was
deliberate.
A mural. It was deliberate.
So I just fell down the trap.
Yes, it was deliberate. Just like dropping that microphone there.
Mic drop.
Not deliberate.
We're going to talk about our top story now. This is an ongoing race now, and time really running out to try and rescue all of those who are trapped on board the Titanic submersible. Estimates that oxygen aboard could run out around 10 o'clock this morning.
Well, speaking last night, the Coast Guard captain said he had hope those on board could be saved.
When you're in the middle of a search and rescue case, you always have hope. That's why we're doing what we do. With respect to the noises specifically, we don't know what they are, to be frank with you. The P3 detected noises. That's why they're up there. That's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why they put sonar buoys in the water. The good news is, what I can tell you is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected, and we'll continue to do so. This is a search and rescue mission, 100%. We are smack dab in the middle of search and rescue, and we'll continue to put every available asset that we have in an effort to find the Titan and the crew members.
So where's the search now? It's currently focused on a point in the North Atlantic where the sound of banging has been detected and much reported. A French vessel carrying a state-of-the-art underwater robot is on its way to the area. In the studio here to give the latest updates is Paul Hawkins, our reporter on this. Paul, we can talk about a sub being in the area. This sub moves at the pace that a human walks.
Yeah.
Over a vast area. I mean, clutching at straws really now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, time is running out. There is less than 10 hours of oxygen left. We should add that the key word there, though, is approximately, because there is a big window there in terms of if they are alive down there, how long they can make that oxygen last. I've seen differing reports on whether there are scrubbers inside that submersible which could clean the carbon dioxide that they would be exhaling. So it depends on how long that oxygen can last. But give or take, it's about just under 10 hours of oxygen left from today. So the clock is definitely ticking. They haven't spotted it yet. They're talking about a salvage operation, but they can only really talk about that and start bringing this huge US naval salvage vessel in once they actually spot it. So what we heard from yesterday, you saw that clip of Captain Jamie Frederick from the US Coast Guard, who gave a press conference yesterday at around 6 p.m. He said that they've now expanded the search area to twice the size of Connecticut. That's bigger than the size of Wales. Mm-hmm. This is a huge area, and they're searching right to the bottom of the Atlantic. That's about 2.5 miles deep. They are bringing in more aircraft, more ROVs as well. We also then had a second press conference. This is from Sean Lees. He's the co-founder and chairman of Horizon Maritime Services. They're the people that own the Polar Prince mothership from which Titan was deployed. And this is what he had to say.
Late last night, the Arctic crew loaded a U.S. ROV, which, thanks to the U.S. military, arrived by air to St. John's Airport late yesterday. The vessel departed the port of St. John's at 5 a.m. this morning and will arrive at the Titanic site tomorrow morning. We are very aware of the time sensitivity around this mission. Our crews and onshore team are experts in their fields and will continue to support this effort in every way we can. We remain focused on contributing to the search for the Titan crew. We have to hold out hope. I think, as you're aware, there's still life support available on the submersible, and we'll continue to hold out hope until the very end.
Absolutely clinging on to hope then there, and yet still time for criticisms to be creeping in, criticisms that the organisation themselves too slow to raise the alarm up to 8 hours before the authorities were notified of this. Is that a legitimate accusation, do you think?
Well, no, and in fact, the co-founder there of Horizon Maritime Services has been defending OceanGate, who own the Submersible, saying that they've taken all precautions that they could have, and they explain to the people who get inside the submersible that they have to sign a waiver. There is a risk, an inherent risk there, and they're saying that they're doing everything that they could. In terms of the equipment that's being sent to the scene, there's a lot of hopes pinned on the French ROV.
Which is a robotic-operated vehicle?
Yeah, it's called the Victor 6000. Now, it's on board the Atalante. I've probably mispronounced that, but that's the French ship that's due to arrive late on Wednesday, late today. So that's right at coming towards the end of that window that they have left in terms of oxygen. There's a picture of it there as it's going into the water, and that can be deployed right to the bottom of the ocean. It's got really high state-of-the-art cameras. That's it, and they've got robotic arms as well. It can't pull. If it were to locate the submersible, it can't pull it to the surface.
This is the problem.
But it does have robotic arms that can cut it free from any wreckage or attach a rope to it to then haul it to the surface.
But of course, that's the problem, isn't it? You can't get oxygen to those inside the submersible unless they're up on the surface. Even if they do detect them, there's no equipment, as far as I'm aware, that can necessarily pull the submersible up.
Yeah.
It's a terrible situation. For those on board, the family, what are we hearing from them? I mean, criticisms I read from Hamish Harding's cousin, that very unhappy with
criticisms as well, but also they're still holding out hope that they will be retrieved, and indeed when we talk about that 10-hour window of oxygen and the clock that's ticking, it's not going to get to 2 p.m. this afternoon and then they call off the search. They'll keep going well past that until they can absolutely rule out.
But Paul, things are bound to change from here on in terms of regulation. I don't know if there's a sort of a trade association for submarines or whatever, but submarines going down to that depth without some sort of cable attached to them, which would pump air or be able to pull it back up independently or whatever. You just cannot see the same conditions being allowed to recur again.
Yeah, this submersible is. Even on the face of it, I know there's been a lot of talk about the video game controller and the fact that bits of it were brought from Camp World, and on the face it is a very simple piece of kit, but behind it there is some quite sophisticated, cutting-edge technology. There aren't many submersibles in the world, and this is the only 5-man sub that can reach that depth, and they've openly admitted, look, no, we're not regulated by anybody. We don't have to manufacture it to any standards because we're right at the cutting edge of technology. If you think about when cars were first invented, there was no standards that the manufacturer had to reach because they were so innovative. So they're quite open about that. But yeah, questions will be raised about whether that needs to be regulated now.
And just lastly, Paul, this banging that has been heard, I mean, they haven't been able to say what it is or get to the bottom of that, but that is protocol, SOS protocol, to release bangs every 30 minutes if there is distress underwater. So there's a lot of hope being pinned on that. Yeah,
there is, but it does come with enormous caveats. I was hearing earlier today from one former US nuclear naval submarine commander who was saying that, look, there's a lot of noises in the oceans and it could be anything. It sounds like something, so they're going to focus their efforts on that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is one of these 5 crew members inside tapping on the outside. But yeah, indeed, that is what the standard SOS maritime signal is, a repeated signal every half an hour or so.
Paul, keep us posted. We hope and pray it all has a good ending. Thank you very much indeed. Meanwhile, experts are warning that a recession could now be inevitable in the UK amid predictions the Bank of England could hike interest rates by 0.5% today.
It would be the bank's 13th consecutive rise and comes as inflation remains stubbornly high at 8.7%, despite predictions that it would fall.
Economic advisers to the Chancellor have hit out at the Bank of England, saying it is and accusing it of exacerbating the mortgage crisis. by just being too cautious? Well, we've got the editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, here to talk about this. Well, if they're not too cautious, it's going to be a lot more pain, Tom. That's the thing. So it could go up 0.25% today?
Could go up more.
Could go up more. Do you think it will go up more?
Well, it seems like the smart money, as it were, is still on that 0.25% rise, although, as you've been saying, there's been this extra pressure given those inflation figures that we saw yesterday. I saw one person describe it as inflation isn't so much sticky as stuck. It's exactly where it is. It's at 8.7%. Core inflation even rising over the course of the past month. So there is a lot of economic pain already out there, and it's just chilling the fact that whatever the bank do today, whatever the margin of the rise is, it's going to spell more and more pain, particularly for homeowners, so many of them looking to come off of their current fixed deals over the course of the past few months. There's been projections that it would suggest that those people who are making that switch, their disposable income is going to drop by about 20%. So it's all very, very bleak. And I just can't help but feel that the technocrats, the experts, the sensibles, have just completely failed. I mean, we were told that Rishi Sunak was going to steady the ship, and that definitely
Tom,
hasn't
I
happened.
just don't understand why these institutions just don't speak English. Instead of hiking and getting involved in the maths and whatever it is, why isn't there just an appeal from the Prime Minister or the Chancellor on televisions which says, folks, we need you to save your money. We do not want you to spend money. We do not want you asking for pay rises, and here is why. And maybe if they just sort of explain that to people, people would say, yeah, maybe I won't have that holiday this year. Maybe I won't buy that conservatory on my house, or, you know, just that sort of spending that... Why do we need to do without it, you know?
I mean, I suppose the difficulty is, especially where the Conservatives are concerned, this doesn't reflect well on them, I should say, is because of the fact that particularly when you get into a conversation about not asking for pay rises and so on, this is a government that in its different iterations, its different forms, has presided over the biggest squeeze on living standards since the Napoleonic Wars. That's one of the things that our kind of post-2008 economic picture has left us particularly exposed to the multiple kind of economic crises we're now being hit with. I also think it serves the government quite well that they can often kind of hide behind the Bank of England and its independence, you know.
Keen to claim that they've reduced inflation if it comes down, but if there's a problem, then they can beat the Bank of England very much with it. It's so difficult. I mean, can they argue anymore that this is global pressures? When you look at how, I think, in the States, inflation's at 4%, in Europe it's 6%. Why have we got this unique situation where it's just not budging?
Well, I think it can be two at the same time, as far as there have been these global crises, of course, kind of a couple of black swan events, kind of once in a generation things happening in the space of a couple of years of each other in terms of the pandemic and the war. But at the same time, they can't excuse the fact that we've been left amongst developed economies particularly exposed because of the fact that we had such an anemic economy in the wake of the financial crisis, that we had basically 10 wasted years, and also a lot of the things that the Bank of England has been doing in terms of flooding the economy with money and liquidity and so on has really created the conditions for the sort of pain that we're feeling at the moment. So two things can be true at the same time. I think the difficulty with the Conservatives, they expended so much energy kind of blaming Labour for the past financial crisis that for them to turn around now and say this is just global pressures won't wash with a lot of people.
And I suppose recession looks more and more inevitable. And I do wonder what you make of the words that the Chancellor made just as Rishi Sunak was visiting the White House recently, saying he was comfortable with that. Do you think that that's going to go down in history as a terrible thing for the Chancellor of the Exchequer to say?
I mean, it definitely should. I mean, this talk of it as if it's almost inevitable, as if it's something we're just going to have to grit our teeth and get through. You know, Jeremy Hunt is not exposed to this problem. People at the Bank of England are not exposed to this problem. I think there was a survey that found most of them don't even have mortgages for obvious reasons, and it's not because they're renting. So I think it's one of those things where we've gotten into this mess. What I would like to see at this point is a discussion not just about how we endure the kind of short-term pain, but how we actually address the problems in the economy with productivity, the fact that living standards have been stalling or going backwards for most people. If there is to be a kind of shake-up, surely we should be able to say that there's going to be something more positive at the end of it, but the government can't say that right now because of the approach they've been taking.
Especially anything that you're buying on tick, anything which has a variable or flexible interest rate. You know, it's one thing saying, right, I'm going to spend £1,000, but if you're spending £1,000 and you're borrowing it, that's obviously much more than £1,000. So this morning, we'd just like to ask you, are you cutting back? And if so, what are you cutting back on? What have you gone without? Changing the car, getting the conservatory in the house, putting a new fireplace in, going on holiday. Let us know, or just simple things. Maybe you don't eat out anymore.
Or are people just increasingly, dangerously continuing their lifestyle, but on credit? I mean, certainly if you look around you in London, it doesn't look like anyone's holding back. Everywhere is busy. The restaurants are full, the shops are full. People are still using Ubers, whatever it might be. Perhaps you're one of those that is, not yet heeding all the warnings that recession is coming and perhaps living on borrowed time.
But you must look at your bill wherever you are. You must look at your bill, the end of a meal, for instance, whatever, and look and say, how much?
Oh, I know.
How much?
Well, we are. I mean, it's just unbelievable whenever we get the bill now. It's just...
Yeah. Well, look, get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.com, or you can tweet at gbnews, and we'll read those out. Where you're saving, how you're having to save, whether you like to or not, but that's what you are doing. So maybe the family holiday's gone this year. Let us know what you think. Tom, anything you'd like to add to that? Where are you saving? How...
Well, we're all making cutbacks, aren't we? It's one of the things, it's reaching into so many different sections of society. You just hope that someone will find a way out of it, because I can't be the only one feeling like not only are things bad, but no one feels like they're in control.
Yeah.
Where are you making savings? I'm trying to think what
I'm not going on holiday.
Yeah.
I just look at it and all the expense occurred around it, whether it's taxis, whether it's the flights, whether it's food prices, whether it's I just look at it and I think I can't justify it. So
well, we're moving house in the next few weeks, and we're right on the front edge of all of this, looking at mortgage rates, really worrying about it, worrying about, we've secured a 2-year fix now, but what will the situation be in 2 years? It's all really worrying. So let us know your experiences. Let's make this relatable to all of us today. Keep those thoughts coming in.
18 minutes past 6 o'clock. A very good morning to you, online, on radio, on television. You're tuned in to GB News Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
And let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. Labour has called on banks to provide support to homeowners facing mortgage payment difficulties amid rising inflation. The party claims that their 5-point plan would allow borrowers to switch to interest-only payments or extend their mortgage terms. We'll be speaking to the Shadow Financial Secretary to the Treasury just before 8 o'clock.
Convenience stores are urging the police to create a most wanted list of thieves as thefts from shops reach record levels. Over 1.1 million theft incidents were reported last year, and that's according to the Association of Convenience Stores.
The King says the Windrush generations made a significant difference to Britain. The anchor of the ship, which brought the first of the Windrush generation to Britain 75 years ago, will be recovered and put on display in honour of Windrush Day today.
Now, that business about convenience stores being robbed and on the increase, again, I'm not condoning it in any way, and I think it's very vulnerable for staff who have to work in convenience stores. But you can sort of understand it. If you ain't got the money and you need to eat, some people must be really, really desperate, or...
And you know that the police are increasingly not policing, so you can get away with it.
Yeah, they're stretched and they're stressed in other ways too. Do you in any way understand it? Have you experienced it? Let us know what you think. Theft at a convenience store.
Maybe seen it, witnessed it. I've seen it in my local corner shop. Seen people come in and stealing food,
Have you?
Yeah, and they've got security on the doors now,
And then I bet you kids, when school's empty as well, where they used to be able to buy their can of pop and their crisps and things,
expensive.
they probably can't do that. They're probably tempted to swipe now. And are those crimes forgiven, or should we treat them as harshly as we would have in the past on all of this one? Stay with us. The Saudis take over the transfer market. We'll be asking Paul Coit which superstar will make the next move after this.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Very nice to see you again. The time, 6:23.
Still to come on our programme this morning as Tom Cruise takes to the red carpet for the premiere of the new Mission Impossible film tonight. How many have there been now? Is this the 7th or something?
Huh?
7th Mission Impossible, I think.
Well, I tell you, it's a
great.
great franchise of films.
But lots of dangerous stunts, as always. So at 6:45, we've invited in a veteran stuntman to talk about how it's done and how easily it can go wrong. He was saying earlier he's nearly died doing these stunts before.
Indeed.
So that's Rocky.
You remember the TV series of Mission Impossible, didn't you? Yes.
Yeah. Martin Landau was in that as well.
Oh, sure you are. You are a brain of Britain on these
You know what? When it comes... It should be really called Mission Possible now, shouldn't it? Because, I mean, let's face it, they manage every year.
Oh, stop
Every
it.
year. Mission Impossible. It's not impossible because we know that it all works out in the end.
Am I wrong? No, I'm right. Leonard Nimoy.
He was in it too.
Was in it as well.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
Yeah, after he played Spock.
Yeah, that's right.
That was great. Yeah. Gosh. We should have a... What?
It's a good show.
The table, driving me mad.
Why does it drive you
Just
mad?
like drumming away. I just got to move the
No,
pen.
go. You see, that's the thing. Him and I could put on the rubber masks and things and become anything we wanted to.
Yeah.
But people like you would just, what's the word, break.
Under pressure.
Under pressure.
Absolutely could not be A, a stuntman, or B, whatever, one of those folk.
I always loved when I was a kid. All these spies, they had attaché cases.
They did have attaché cases.
I didn't even know what an attaché case was. Click, click, click.
Two would come up.
And then, of course, your tape was in there.
Yes.
If you decide this tape will self-destruct.
And there were little rolly tapes, weren't they? Little turning like your... Is that what they call... I think that's what they call them in the business.
Reel to reel.
Those rolly tapes, those were the ones.
7:20, what's happening 7:20?
Well, as local authorities are handed new powers now to hand out prison sentences for using fireworks, we ask if local bureaucrats have been handed too much power.
No, I'd like to stick my oar in on this. Fireworks, thing of the past. They belonged to the Chinese in the 17th century or whatever.
Ban the fun because Maggie doesn't like them.
They're bad for the environment. All that plastic bits and everything around the place, the noise pollution and the distress to cows and horses and my little Maggie is unbelievable. Mr. Coit has doggies. What do
I do absolutely agree. Absolutely agree with you. My little rescue beagle Nellie gets terrified with those. And is it really worth it? I think it's awful.
No, it's a lot of rubbish.
But you can have silent ones though, can't you? Huh? So can't they just have the silent ones that don't make the bangs?
I don't know if you can.
You can. Apparently they can do it.
There's nothing like the wonder of a firework display. Little kids, their little faces light up. It's magical.
And then the little foxes and rabbits that are eating all the residue and being poisoned by it all over the country, and the fish which are choking on it.
Most of the things we do are bad for the planet. Why are you picking on that one?
Oh, see, because you're just like a witch for the planet. You are on a broomstick, killing the planet.
Well, that's my view. That's his view. Let us know your views. gbnews@gbnews.com, or you can tweet us at GBNews.
Back pages on this Thursday morning. The Star leading with mounting cost. Manchester United's £50 million offer for Mason Mount from Chelsea rejected. I wonder how much they want. Chelsea's £200 million clear-out dominates the Telegraph. 2 players also set to leave the club. And The Guardian. Finally, don't stop believing, says The Guardian, as Brendan McCallum defends England's tactics in the first Ashes test. Paul Coit, what did you think of those tactics?
I think, well, the tactics for the Ashes, I think that's the way we play now. Yeah. We've had success,
so
got to go with it.
One test down.
One test down, only just got beaten, and there were a few mistakes. You know, you probably think with Johnny Bairstow behind the stumps, dropped a few, and maybe the declaration was at the wrong time. But it's the way we play, it's entertaining, and it ain't over yet. So I'm very much looking forward to the next one.
OK, my friend. Yes. Let's talk about the football transfer news.
Chelsea.
Was Bernardo... Sorry, was the Man City captain, Bernardo Silva...
Yeah.
Was that a surprise?
No, Ilkay Gundogan is there, but Bernardo Silva is going. Yeah.
Sorry.
But Ilkay Gundogan,
yes, that was
not really is a surprise because there was talk about because he's come to the end of his contract. So thinking, what does he do? Where does he go? And he's been arguably their player of the season. He's been brilliant this year.
And he's won everything.
He's won everything. He's going to Barcelona.
Yeah.
And they'd offered him, I think, a year contract. Barcelona have offered him longer, better terms, but when Barcelona come knocking, you know, you played at Manchester City for a while, and then you get to play at Barcelona, a career will be totally complete, won't it, if you go over there and play at the Bernabeu? So I think it's probably a good call.
Oh, so let's talk about Bernardo Silva then.
Or the new camp, I beg your pardon, I don't want to get that wrong. Yeah, but and also, well, really, there's him as well. Looks like going to Saudi Arabia. And this Chelsea fire sale, because they've got to get rid of so many players. There's 2 reasons. Firstly, they've got so many players. And the other reason, which is really important, is the FFP, which is financial fair play. They've got to offload plenty of players
balance
the books. So Kante, Ziyech, Koulibaly, Mendy, so they've all gone. They're all heading to Saudi Arabia. But there's this rumour that's going round now, suggestions of foul play, where there's a little foul play involved, and this is with the Saudi Public Investment Fund, the PIF, which of course own Newcastle and behind Live Golf as well. Now they have bought 4 clubs in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. So their footprint across all of football and sport just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So they own these clubs. And Chelsea are selling a lot of players over to Saudi Arabia. So we assume that it's purely for the money that these players will make. But also that they've actually invested in Clear Lake Capital. This is what we're hearing as well, the PIF fund. So there's investment in Chelsea. Now, this hasn't been proved, and there's a lot of investments that they are involved in. So whether this has got anything to do with it, a lot of people are very unhappy and thinking, well, actually, is this a little double dealing here that Chelsea, or it's actually helping out Chelsea, buying these clubs, and then these players seem to go over there?
All we wants to watch a match.
All you want to watch is just a good game of football without...
Gary Neville has called on the Premier League to stop the transfer of players to Saudi Arabia until it is certain that the integrity of its competition is not being put at risk.
Exactly.
Yeah. He does a very good thing with Jamie Carragher and Roy Keane overlap on tour.
Yeah.
Have you watched it?
I haven't seen it. No, I haven't seen it. I know of it very much, but,
very good,
but I haven't
very
actually seen him doing it.
Very good,
We had a fabulous day at Ascot yesterday.
Did you?
And so did Frankie Dettori.
He did. Well, it's his final Royal Ascot, so next year he'll probably be sitting with you. He won't be riding. This is the final one for him. He's 52
He
now.
might be giving the tips. We'll just get a little jockey come in and give tips.
And you know what? You could, jump from the sofa.
Charlie, have you got those pictures of us at Ascot? They'll have them in 10 seconds. In the meantime, enjoy some of the scenery.
There is nowhere like Ascot, is there? Look at it, absolutely beautiful from the beautiful green grass. Everybody looking so fabulous. People make such an effort, don't they? Everyone looking absolutely tremendous.
Look, those two look very spruce.
Who are those?
Eamonn, is there one with you with the hat? Look, I think you wear the hat well.
I like the
because a lot of people cannot wear a top hat.
I'm like the fat controller.
Oh, now, come on.
Actually, I broke regulations, look there.
Why, what did you do?
She showed flesh.
To show your midriff, and I hadn't studied the regulations.
Were you called up by it? Did someone stop you?
Yeah, I did.
Really?
And then Eamonn said, would you wear it to church? Really, to make my conscience play badly. I probably would wear that to a wedding, but anyway, I got told off.
What you can't see there is Isabel's arm is hiding her... What do you call that part of your body? Is that your waist?
Midriff, yeah.
Your midriff.
Waist, yeah.
there at that stage.
So what was it, police? It was like fashion police come up and say, cover that over, Mrs. What's going on?
There's etiquette police.
Right. To get in, and then they come
It'd be sort of police, it wouldn't affect you. You wouldn't be allowed in the sort of areas we have access to.
Well, I am officially riffraff. You know that, don't you?
Yes,
I am
totally
riffraff.
get that.
I'm not hoi polloi like you.
Don't you worry about it.
Fine,
Not
okay.
affect you.
I just don't want to see Isabel arrested. That's all it is. I was just showing a little
It just took
concern.
the wind out my sails, I have to
I'll
be
bet it
honest.
did.
I don't like breaking the rules.
Yeah.
And I felt a bit trashy after they said that. So for about an hour, I was a bit.
Do you have any
flustered.
trashy pictures that we can show? Just
Well, those were the-
something.
that
No, that your arm covered everything.
Well, no, there was a full-length one, but.
So did you have to walk everywhere with your arm looking like you're Napoleon
No,
because you
I
put your
did
arm
that
across?
for
Did you do that for her?
I said, I just, let me cover this bit of flesh all around the front here, and I was very gentlemanly
You
like
were.
that.
I had my real husband and my telly husband,
Yes.
so I was very careful.
All midriff was
guarded
covered.
on either side. Your husband was very, very helpful yesterday. He took all the photographs.
He brought us snacks.
He brought us snacks.
He's not normally like
He
that.
brought me to the toilet.
Oh,
which was
did he?
good. Yes.
Oh, my. I missed that one.
It was all very good.
Good.
My favourite names, by the way, do you see the names of some of the horses? Because I always love to hear names of horses. They have to be registered. They're very careful about. Sometimes you can't, if you name a horse that's been named before.
Yes.
So my two favourite were in the Royal Hunt Cup, and that was Jimi Hendrix beat Sonny Liston. So a little boxing there for Sonny Liston, the great old heavyweight. So there were two horses. There was a Jimi Hendrix and there was a Sonny Liston.
There was one I laughed at, was called Don't Tell Claire.
Right.
And I thought, wonder what
There's always stories behind them, you see. There's always a story. I'd love to hear what the story was. Who was Claire, and did she know about her husband having this horse? Yeah, absolutely.
Now, look, when we come back next time, we're going to show this this portrait. Matter of fact, I think we'll show it now and we'll have a good talking point. Show this portrait at Wimbledon, and these are of...
Muriel.
I was going to say, this is the Muriel. I was going to say that these are past winners, but they're not all past winners.
They're not all past winners. There's Djokovic, Federer is in there. I think Nadal.
No prominent women.
No, Carlos
Billie Jean
Alcaraz,
King there.
Yannick Sinner. Why would you think, let's get Yannick Sinner in there? But there's one major name missing, and quite the faux pas, and I think they will probably put it right by the time Wimbledon comes round in a couple of weeks and stick Andy Murray in there.
But
how is he not there?
But how could they put it right? Do you think they can paint him into the
They
background?
can do anything these days. AI, they just stick it in there.
Oh, talk about AI. Now, I was reading that the podcasts coming out of Wimbledon will have artificial intelligence voices on them.
Exactly. Well, I was thinking, firstly, bad, but you know me, I look on the bright side of everything. I'm thinking, you could bring back Dan Maskell. Can you imagine Dan Maskell?
Well, they could do that.
Oh, I say.
Harry Carpenter. Des Lynam.
Every commentator copies what Dan Maskell said, and it drives me crazy when you hear commentators go, "Oh, I say," and you go, "You would never say that in real life."
I just want Sue Barker back.
You would never.
She should never have been.
She should never, but she's still around, so you don't really need to do an AI of her. She'll be there. But they're using AI for commentary around the outside court, so there's always a commentary.
Well, I don't get it. I don't understand it. We'll have to listen and watch and see. But I mean, that used to be jobs for people like you and me. Correct. To do on your way up. And now a machine does it.
Yeah, I think they've got a voice. They said you won't recognise the voice. So the AI will recognise who's playing, what shot they're playing. Yeah. So as Dan Maskell would say, the marvellous left backhand cross court gives McEnroe match point. That will be a machine that will do that, whether you call it a machine. But AI, and it's a nonsense, Eamonn.
It is a nonsense.
It is. I say. Lovely. OK, Paul will be back saying more, 8:20 this morning.
Stay with us. We're going to be discussing that Titan sub search and rescue mission when we go through the papers now with Freddie Gray and Emma Bernard.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling
the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Welcome back. It's 6:38. Where is the time going? It's flying.
Flying.
Absolutely whizzing. Let's take a look at the newspaper front pages this morning.
Sun goes with the final hours as the robot sub joins the hunt for Titan 5 trapped under the Atlantic.
The Times says triggering a recession could tame inflation as the Chancellor's economic advisers blame the Bank of England for exacerbating the mortgage crisis.
Then we have the Telegraph leading with NHS lung cancer tests for every ex-smoker as ministers back a recommendation to offer checks to middle-aged patients.
And The Guardian is gearing up for Glastonbury as festival goers arrive at Worthy Farm for the iconic music festival. What weather for them as well. Absolutely tremendous.
Yeah. Joining us, Freddie Gray and Emma Burnell with the papers. And Freddie, I suppose, clutching at straws with the mini sub.
Yes. Well, the Mirror front page is holding on to hope. And in fact, hope is the word on several front pages today. And I suppose that's all we've got at the moment. I think there's this temptation to think that it's going to be a sort of Hollywood ending and we're going to see, and, you know, obviously that would be great. But I think we do have to be realistic about this, and I think that the odds are thinning all the time. And if we don't get an answer this morning, if we don't have a fine this morning, which seems, it would almost be miraculous, I think, at this stage.
No, I agree with you.
And I think the other thing to remember is that there may not be an ending to this story.
Yeah.
We'll just never know.
Or it could just be years.
Yes.
Yeah.
But,
awful.
But we do hold on to hope.
Yeah, and, you know, your heart goes out to the family members of those on board, well, those on board themselves, but the loved ones. I mean, this just must be the stuff of nightmares. I honestly can't think of a worse scenario, really, this sort of time limit to it.
Let's talk about the economy now. Front page of the Times. Emma, I thought this was quite interesting, where they talk about triggering a recession, and it could actually be good if economics does trigger a recession.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it? So Jeremy Hunt's advisors are suggesting that despite the Bank of England responding to various pressures on inflation by raising interest rates, I think, for the 18th time today, we're expecting. They're also talking too dovishly and saying that it's too much about international pressures, not domestic pressures, which, frankly, if anyone listened to PMQs, so's the Prime Minister. They're now saying that what we really need is a recession, which I don't remember being on Rishi Sunak's 5 big pledges. I mean, it must be extraordinary to be a Chancellor in such a position that your advisors are telling the front page of the Times what we need right now is a recession, and that's your best political option. I mean, it's an extraordinary moment.
Well, only because it would bring this terrible situation with rising inflation and corresponding interest rates to a halt, would it not?
It may be necessary, and I do hold on to hope that this government is such a backfiring government that by trying to trigger a recession, they might trigger an economic boom.
Is hope all you've got, Freddie, to reiterate?
It's the theme of the morning.
Yeah. I know. I think. Jeremy Hunt's been talking about this for a while now, and I think the government have just come to accept that their interest rates are not dealing with the inflation problem. if core inflation is embedded into the economy now, the only way to deal with it is mass unemployment. That's historically the only way that it gets dealt with.
Here's another controversial thought. Front page of The Guardian, the Labour Party calling for mortgage support. Now, we can all see why. But I can see a lot of people who are saying, listen, I felt I couldn't afford a mortgage, so I didn't take one out. I couldn't afford to buy a home. You decided to do it, therefore, in your head, you've got to take the good with the bad. But such sympathy for everyone who finds themselves in a position they were paying 300 quid, now they're going to have to pay 600 quid. Tell us more, Freddie.
Well, I think Labour's plan, I mean, there are various little bits to it that people might be able to switch to interest only, which make it easier. They wouldn't get their house repossessed as quickly. But what it really amounts to is pressuring the banks to be nice. And as we all know, banks are famously very nice when owed money. But I mean, I think there will be room for some leniency. The banks probably can afford to take a bit of pain if repayments don't happen. But really, we're talking about, again, we're delaying inevitable pain. But people are going to have to suffer to deal with this inflation problem. Does it have to be mortgage holders? The reason Labour are doing this is because they have a growing lead among property owners, among mortgage holders. And for the Labour Party to be 15 points, I think, ahead with mortgage holders is staggering.
But can Labour really claim these suggestions as their own? I mean, it was just a couple of days ago that we were hearing the government is urging banks to be more lenient.
Well,
now the Labour...
I think there are 5 specific suggestions that have come from Labour that haven't been put forward yet by the government, which is, as Freddie said, being able to switch to an interest-only mortgage, being able to lengthen the term of your mortgage, and really vitally, the third one is being able to switch back at some point, so not being stuck on a mortgage that then becomes... Or penalised for it. Extending the length of time before a repossession happens to see if people can get themselves square. These are important, as Freddie says, there isn't any kind of government lever at the moment, so it would be essentially the government saying, if you don't do this, we will regulate. That could take some time. I'm not sure the government have got some time. But these are... essentially, I think they're important because what they are ways of helping mortgage holders without the government giving them a cash injection.
A bailout.
Because I really do think that wouldn't be the right thing to do. As a mortgage holder, I can see the pain, I can see it coming, but I think that there are so many people who are worse off than those who at the moment hold some interest in property So I think that there has to be ways of helping those people who are really struggling and really frightened. I spent yesterday on the phone with a mortgage broker working out. I mean, I'm thankfully all right because I'm not due to renew until 2025. But, we are worried. So it's a way of easing those worries without it being an inflationary injection of cash.
One of you said there the banks should be sucking up some of this, and I was looking at salaries from the chief executives of banks, and we weren't just talking 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. We were talking about, in one case, £7 million a year to be the boss of a bank. But there you go. Nice work if you can get it.
I mean, that would pay the mortgage.
Yeah, that would.
Well, the irony, and it's, we often talk about it, but the people who are on the Monetary Policy Committee, the people who are in the Treasury, we've had Michael Gove, who's responsible for housing and levelling up. A lot of them don't have mortgages. And actually can't imagine.
None of them rent.
You know they don't have mortgages.
Well, Michael Gove was asked at the weekend, and
he says he doesn't have a mortgage. That's a good position to be in.
But, I mean, even, how many people in those positions, making those decisions, changing people's lives, rent? And so, with this mortgage crisis is not just a crisis for mortgage holders, because a lot of those costs will be pushed down onto renters. So, there's a lot of buy-to-let mortgage holders out there who are... their costs are going up, they're pushing it onto renters. I think if they are given any of these measures, there has to be a way of making sure that those savings are passed on to their tenants.
It's also worth reflecting on what a debt-driven economy we have. I mean, we're talking about 6%. Historically, that is not that high. The problem is we just have a lot more people with a lot more debt.
Now, Freddie, do you have a doggie?
I do.
Do you let...
Hippo, that's
She's
brilliant.
called Hippo, yeah.
Do you let the dog lick you or kiss you, or do you kiss or lick the dog?
In moments of weakness, yeah, I've been there. But sometimes it can be she is quite a licker.
Yes.
She's very fond of licking feet, particularly. Yes. But yes, if I put up face to face, she'll lick my nose.
And do you recoil or do you embrace it?
Depends on my mood, but yeah. I like it. I'm very fond of Hippo.
I went to a psychic. No, I didn't. My psychic came to me, a pet psychic, and said my dog's main concern was that I don't let the dog kiss or lick me. And that's the dog's main concern. I thought, that's right. How did she know that?
So have you been making up for it?
If my wife would treat me the way my dog does, I would be a very happy man. Anyway, dirty dogs. Tell us about the Star reporting this morning, Emma.
Yeah, so they're saying that you are right to be concerned about this, that dogs licking your face is actually a spreader of germs. Who knew? Dogs do eat bad things.
Yes.
They don't brush their teeth.
And they smell bad things as well.
They smell bad things. They lick themselves and other things. Yeah, anyone who's walked a dog ever will know that they stop at every lamppost, have a sniff, possibly have a lick.
Yeah.
And these are ways of spreading what we know to be quite, dangerous germs. I'm a cat owner. I have dogs that I walk with my sister and my mum. They both own dogs. Now, I admit, my cat is very, very clever, and she knows that she'll get a lot of loves and treats if she comes up and kisses me on the nose. But that's just a nose-to-nose touch. She never licks me.
That's lovely.
Right, OK.
As dog owners, can I just ask, is it offensive? Since COVID, and I've become obsessed with hand washing, which I realise is sometimes an obsessive behaviour. If I stroke a dog, I go straight away to wash my hands. And I always worry I've offended the dog owner because I'm implying their animal is dirty. But I can't eat or anything or spend my day after I've touched a dog.
Not offended in the least.
OK, good.
Now, and also one of the things we learned about COVID is how often we touch our face because we all got so obsessed with it. So it makes perfect sense.
Much more into hand washing.
One thing we'll say one thing I do find offensive because our dog's a Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Is sometimes people in the park say if she's off the lead, she's completely harmless. We'll say you shouldn't have that dog off the lead. A dog like that you shouldn't have on the lead.
Yeah, and that's rude.
And I think that's very rude. So then I point at them and I go, kill.
Freddie, Emma, thank you very much indeed. The guys are back in about 45 minutes' time. The time now, 11 minutes before 7.
Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
The King says the Windrush generation has made a significant difference to Britain. The anchor of the ship, which brought the first of the Windrush generation to this country 75 years ago, will be recovered and put on display in honour of Windrush Day today.
The search for a firefighter who went missing whilst attempting a charity swim across the English Channel has been called off. Ian Hughes aimed to raise funds for charities including the British Heart Foundation and Midlands Air Ambulance. The search for a 42-year-old man involved French and Belgian military helicopters.
Despite heavy rain in Glastonbury, festival goers remain undeterred as the world-famous music event makes its comeback. Those arriving in Somerset today could experience travel disruption. Bit of wet weather predicted, but the skies are set to clear before tomorrow.
Now it's all go. The red carpet's been laid and the premiere for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, starring, of course, Tom Cruise, is taking place right here in London tonight.
Tom Cruise is in his 60s. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, he's preserved very, very well. He's physically active as well. And he insists on performing his own stunts, really complicated stunts, including his deadliest one ever on this film, on a motorcycle. Well, the thing is, he does people like this, who joins us now in the studio, professional stuntman Rocky Taylor, out of work. Goodness, what is your Rocky? Good to see you.
Thank you.
See you,
Good to see you.
Thank you.
whatever you think of Tom Cruise as an actor or not, there's no doubt he is a star, and he proves he does stunts. He walks on the wings of airplanes. He's at the top of that tower in Dubai. Unbelievable. How dangerous was that as a stunt?
I mean, dangerous. Of course, it's dangerous. He's up, I can't remember, about 200 or 300 feet, and he rehearsed it properly before into boxes, flat. And then did it. I mean, I admire him. I think he's the greatest actor, stuntman I've ever worked for.
Is it really necessary in this day and age with CGI? I just assumed watching that it was fake. And you think, A, he could get a stunt to do it, B, he could get that computer animated. Why does he insist?
And see, people think it's fake.
Because
well, no one gives him the credit
that's
for
the
it.
nature of the man. He wants to do everything himself.
Yeah.
I mean, I
He's
admire
broken
him.
his leg,
I
dude.
love him. I think he's the best actor I've ever worked with.
Really? And you've worked with him in the past?
I've just done the Mission Impossible 6 with him.
Oh, fantastic.
I drive the train that crashes.
Oh,
well, you see, the thing is, Rocky here still working away, and Rocky's 97 years of age.
I beg your pardon. You're 78.
No, but you're 78. Absolute credit, absolutely amazing. One of the things, my friend, which I'd like you to tell people about, and it's all very much in the news again, this obsession with Titanic.
I know, it's mind-blowing how bad it's gone. I just can't believe what's happening down there. It's actually frightening to think that they're going to go in another couple of hours if they don't get down there. I mean, it's just mind-blowing.
But you had to deal in simulated circumstances with the Kate Winslet version of Titanic.
Oh, Titanic, yeah, I played a part. There's a photograph of me there.
OK, and tell us about this part.
That's the part with the girl that I'm supposed to drown with her.
Yes.
And we played the part of drowning, but they cut it out of the movie because it was too horrific.
Hold that up.
So, but I'm still in the movie. I'm in the beginning, the middle and the end.
OK, well, we'll look out for you. But you've played along all sorts of stars as a stuntman.
Roger Moore. I mean, Roger Moore was one of the greatest actors I ever worked for, throwing punches as well.
Really?
Oh, he could do his... He liked driving, but he didn't want to do his stunts, so he made us do it. I did double quite a lot for Roger. But he was a great actor and fight. He could do a fight scene.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Live and Let Die.
Yes.
And the crocodiles. Was that you?
I walked across it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, my
yes.
goodness.
You would...
Rubber, they were rubber.
They were rubber.
Oh, what?
Oh, it's a really good scene.
Yeah, it's a fantastic scene.
Yeah, looks really well.
You know, obviously seeing Tom Cruise doing that, a man in his 60s, you do risk your life taking these sorts of stunts.
Of course you do, but you have to. But what you do, people don't realise, you practice, rehearse.
Still could go wrong, Rocky. I mean, you nearly died doing a stunt. Tell us about that.
Death Wish 3. I nearly
Ironically.
It was nearly a clappers on end for Rocky Taylor. It took me 4 to 5 years to get back to work.
What happened?
It was supposed to be, I'm on top of the building and there's a little bit of flame. I'll get to the edge and I jump. And as I jump, it blows up.
Yeah.
Well, it blew up before I got to the edge. And it really went up in flames.
So why? How did that happen? Was that...
It was a mistake with someone down below. I really don't know. We can't put the blame on anybody, really.
It nearly ended your career.
Could have ended your life.
Yeah. It hasn't been the same since.
Oh.
You've got the whole story.
I've brought my book in for you. Yes.
Thank you very much. Jump, Rocky, Jump.
Yeah.
And Ray Winston gives you a foreword in this, and you have worked with them all.
I've worked with Ray a lot. He's a lovely man.
Ray, he is a lovely man. I'll verify that as well. What would you have been if you hadn't have been a stuntman, or what were you before you were a stuntman? What do you think you would have been?
Well, I started off very, very young. I was a black belt judo.
All right.
At 17.
Yeah.
And my father was an actor stuntman, and a guy called Peter Diamond had a scene in The Young Ones for Cliff to have a fight scene.
Right.
So he said, your son, Larry, yeah, he does judo, doesn't he? Can he come in and teach Cliff some judo? So I went in to teach him some judo, and he said, while you're teaching him judo, there's a part where he has to have a fight in the film. Would you play the part? Oh, well, of course I will. And from that moment on, I became a stuntman.
At least you didn't become a singer.
I do like to bring Ross home and Delilah. Everywhere I go, people sing Delilah for you, Rocky. So I do like singing.
Good man. Got to
That
go.
makes two of you.
Thank you very much. Rocky, it's a great
pleasure.
story.
Thank you very much
coming
indeed.
in.
Live long and prosper, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Not at all. Not at all. Wish we had longer.
Stay with us. We'll have all the latest for you on that missing Titan sub, as it's estimated that the oxygen supply could run out a little bit later on this morning.
Let's get an update on the weather, though, first of all.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's another bright, sunny start for many of us today, and it's going to be another very warm one, especially towards the southeast. As the warmth builds, again, a few showers will develop, but fewer, and certainly fewer thunderstorms compared with recent days. Many places will actually have a dry day, especially if you're in the north, central belt northwards across Scotland, or in the far south and southeast. Plenty of sunny skies continuing. In between, especially through this central swathe of the UK, the Midlands into northern England, East Wales, there will be some fairly lively showers developing, even some thunderstorms. Away from the showers, mid to high 20s, 29 in London, low 20s for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Then any showers that do develop will die away as the sun goes down, and then clear spells for many overnights. But what we're seeing over the next few days actually is an increase in humidity coming up from the south and southwest. So it's a muggier night, a more uncomfortable night for sleeping compared with recent nights, 16 to 18 Celsius in the south, 13 or 14 further north. And for Western Scotland, Northern Ireland, a cloudy start to Friday. Outbreaks of rain from the word go. This is showery rain, that will be on and off, but there'll be some heavier bursts indicated by the bright colours there moving through Northern Ireland and southwest Scotland into Friday. That rain eventually reaching parts of Cumbria as well as West Wales by the end of the afternoon. Ahead of that, 1 or 2 showers possible for East Anglia, but otherwise actually plenty of sunshine for central and eastern areas, and again 29 Celsius the expected high, whilst it'll feel a bit cooler, although still quite humid for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Scotland and Northern Ireland will continue to be affected by weather fronts moving up from the southwest into the weekend. Some persistent rain at times. This also occasionally affecting Northern England and North Wales. With that changeable weather, temperatures will be at around the low to mid-20s, but towards the south and southeast, those temperatures will get even higher, up to 30 or 31 Celsius.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc. That's the whole point. But
and action.
Sergeant, we've been read my superstar panel that are already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
Time is running out in the hunt for the Titanic sub as the Coast Guard says he has hope he can save those on board.
At 1 minute past 7 exactly, a very good morning to you. It's a Thursday morning, 22nd of June. Breakfast on GB News, Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The search for the missing Titan submersible reaches a critical moment as estimates suggest the air supply on board could run out by 10 a.m. A French robot sub that can dive to 6,000 metres has arrived in the area and could be the last hope for those on board.
Warnings that a recession is now inevitable as the Bank of England prepares to hike interest rates for the 13th consecutive time today.
Interest rates are almost certainly going up, but by how much? I'll be reporting from the Bank of England, and more home loan pain on the way. What can you do to keep your mortgage payments manageable?
The Foreign Secretary said the UK would be supportive of a plan to help Ukraine join NATO. We'll speak to James Cleverly in around half an hour's time.
And your local council, has it become too controlling? As some areas create firework control zones, we'll ask if the government has given local authorities too much power.
And will it be storms or sunshine for those heading to Glastonbury and for the rest of us? Find out in our forecast.
For many, but not for all, temperatures will be shooting up over the next few days. How hot will it get? I'll have the full details in the weather forecast coming up soon.
Here's your top story. The race to rescue people trapped on board the Titanic submersible continues this morning amid estimates that the oxygen supply could run out at approximately 10 o'clock this morning.
Well, speaking last night, the Coast Guard captain, Jamie Frederick, said he had hope that those on board could still be saved.
When you're in the middle of a search and rescue case, you always have hope. That's why we're doing what we do. With respect to the noises specifically, we don't know what they are. To be frank with you, the P3 detected noises. That's why they're up there. That's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why they put sonar buoys in the water. The good news is, what I can tell you is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected, and we'll continue to do so. This is a search and rescue mission, 100%. We are smack dab in the middle of search and rescue, and we'll continue to put every available asset that we have in an effort to find the Titan and the crew members.
Well, that search is currently focused on a point in the North Atlantic where that sound of banging was detected, with a French vessel carrying a state-of-the-art underwater robot on its way to the area.
Joining us now, retired Commander, Royal Australian Navy and former Submarine Escape and Rescue Project Director. We say good morning to Frank Owen. Frank, thanks for your time this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Hi, Frank. How are you feeling about this, Frank? We're on a countdown. We don't know how definite that countdown is, but that countdown could be 10 o'clock and the oxygen could run out by that stage. How difficult is this search and rescue project?
It is extremely difficult. I'm given comfort by and optimism by the fact that these noises have been heard, and they appear to be too evenly spaced at half-hour intervals, not to be humans making them. What I'm concerned about is that there's an assumption that remotely operated vehicles will be able to hear these noises, and that's almost invariably not the case. I've never yet seen a remotely operated vehicle that's equipped with a passive hydrophone, and you need to have ears, passive ears in this sense, to be able to hear. So the ROVs are very useful once you've actually localized, which you need to do with some sort of sensor like a sonar buoy or a submarine, to be able to actually localize where the sound is coming from in a latitude and longitude, if you like. If it's then on the bottom, these ROV, the remotely operated vehicle, can go and start looking for it using its own active sonar, and that would be an imaging type sonar, and or cameras. But even the cameras, they have to operate using the lights that it has, and that's like driving in the fog with all the backscatter. So there's a number of things against them, and of course, as you say, the time's running out. Fortunately, they have on board this ex-French Navy diver, and he will have provided them advice to slow down, to conserve their oxygen, minimize their production of carbon dioxide. And it's therefore, if they were able to do that, 96 hours could become 100, 108.
Gosh, it's just unbearable to think, really. Even if they are able to find and pinpoint exactly where the submersible is, how easy is it for them to get it back up to the surface in the time frame that we're talking about?
It's very difficult to get it back up to the surface. In fact, the only vehicle that can probably bring it to the surface is the US Navy's deep salvage remotely operated vehicle that should be on scene on the site by now, but it needs to know where it's to go to. It's not really a search asset, it's a recovery asset. So, and then it will take time, perhaps 2 hours, to get down to 4,000 metres. It then needs to survey the submersible, discover if and why it's stuck on the bottom. If it is entangled in something, try and break it clear, and then try and lift it. And that is going to take a lot of time. Alternatively, it could be near the surface, and this thing is not going to be easy to see on the surface because you're showing a picture there of this on the top of its barge. It won't be floating like that. It won't even be floating. Almost none of it will be visible over the top of the ocean. It'll be actually sitting, lying sort of awash, so that it's not presenting a good radar target, it's not presenting a good visual target, and it's not equipped with lights, reflectors, radio beacons, or anything else.
Frank, you're a submariner. I've never been on a submarine. Been on a submarine?
No, and I'm not inclined to anytime soon.
Could you give us an insight? I mean, you're dealing, you're commanding, you're on a big submarine. This thing is very, very small. What is life like under the water? Is it something to be frightened about? Is it something to respect? Is it a lonely place? Is it a cold place, a quiet place? Just explain to us what it's like at huge depths.
Okay, inside a naval submarine, it's like being in a train. It's like a train. You've got a corridor down the side and compartments off to the side, or an aeroplane. It's actually very easy to deal with people and to move around. Inside a submersible like this, it is a very cramped, small. You can probably sit up. In fact, we've seen pictures of them sitting, but you can't stand. You have to probably cross your legs. So your legs, after a while, are going to get rather tired. If you're older and your legs need a little bit of helping to stretch out, it's going to be uncomfortable. If it is near the surface, it'll be rolling around, bobbing like a cork. They're not in a position to talk to anybody. Their communication system that they use apparently is using a satellite link to Starlink, the Elon Musk satellite system, and it passes text messages to the Starlink. Now, the fact that things of communications have been lost and things have broken down suggests that probably wouldn't be available, and it may not therefore have any backup system. So I have been down under the water in quite depths in small submarines. In fact, I've been near the bottom of the Milford Sound in New Zealand, in the Antipodes, which is one of the submersibles now owned by OceanGate. I was doing a safety case assessment for that submersible. It was comfortable, but it's small. I'm not uncomfortable about having cramped, confined spaces.
Fine.
So
Frank,
I'm not.
You paint a vivid picture of life on a submarine, and we really do appreciate you explaining just how difficult logistically this search and rescue mission is. That's Frank Owen, an Australian former naval commander. Thank you very much indeed for
Thanks for your take, Frank. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Paul, it was interesting hearing there Paul Hawkins in the studio with us, and it was interesting hearing Frank there describing some of the safety checks he'd done with this particular operator. There are now growing criticisms of exactly what kind of regulations there were, and indeed I see on the front of the Telegraph this morning the cousin of one of those on board, the British billionaire Hamish Harding, saying actually very critical of how slow they were to raise the alarm. They could have lost 8 hours in all of this.
Yeah, and US media reporting that there are court documents showing 2 former OceanGate employees separately raised similar safety concerns about the thickness of Titan's hull. A former OceanGate worker speaking to the US media said that the hull had only been built to 5 inches thick. The company's own engineers had told them that it needed to be another 2 inches, so 7 inches thick in total. And you were talking about regulations in the last hour, Eamonn, and of course this submersible is at the very cutting edge of deep ocean exploration when it comes to technology. The Manned Underwater Vehicles Committee of the Marine Technology Society, it wrote to OceanGate in 2018, specifically expressed concern over the company's compliance with a Maritime Risk Assessment certification. There are 10 submarines in the world that can go 12,000 feet and deeper, said someone from the Marine Technology Society, Will Conan. All of them are certified except the OceanGate submersible. OceanGate declined to comment when it was approached by US media. But look, OceanGate say that they're being very open, honest, transparent. They get the people who take these submersibles to sign waivers, and there are no guarantees that you're that you're going to come back alive. Although they obviously minimise the risk, but also that you may not even make the journey. And there have been various journeys. It takes 2.5 hours to reach the Titanic, and sometimes they're not completed. There are malfunctions with the technology. There was one US reporter that was taken. I think he only made it 37 feet down. And then there was a malfunction. Then they had to come back up to the surface when they took him on board. So there are concerns. What's fascinating listening to Frank just now is that those nuclear submarines, they travel about 300 metres below the surface. We're talking about the wreck of the Titanic at 3,800 metres down.
The depths
so
of some
much
of the highest
further.
mountains in the world.
Absolutely.
Underneath the sea. Paul, you paint a vivid picture as well. All of it so vivid, the imagery around this. Thanks very much. We'll hear more from you a little bit later on.
Thanks, Paul. With the time 30 minutes past 7, let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
Labour has called on banks to provide support to homeowners facing mortgage payment difficulties amid rising inflation. The party's claiming their 5-point plan would allow borrowers to switch to interest-only payments or extend their mortgage terms. And we'll be speaking to the Shadow Financial Secretary of the Treasury just before 8 o'clock on that this morning.
Convenience stores are urging the police to create a most wanted list of thieves as thefts from shops reach record levels. Over 1.1 million theft incidents were reported last year, according to the Association of Convenience Stores.
King Charles and Queen Camilla's hopes of victory at Royal Ascot were dashed on the first day as their horses reached for the moon and Circle of Fire fell short. Instead, the horse Jimi Hendrix won the Royal Hunt Cup, while Sonny Liston was the runner-up.
So throughout the news today and within the newspapers, there are warnings that recession is now inevitable amid predictions the Bank of England could hike interest rates by as much as 0.5% today, and that will be the 13th consecutive rise. It comes as inflation remains really high at 8.7%. Despite predictions, it would fall. Well,
let's speak to our economics and business editor, Liam Halligan, about all of this. I mean, really, this is getting serious now.
Look, we're not in a 2007, 2008 situation. I don't see banks falling over. I don't see some massive systemic collapse on global financial markets. That's the first thing to say. The second thing to say is that there is going to be quite a lot of mortgage pain for quite a lot of people. Let's have a look at a graphic here of where interest rates have been over recent years. Back in 2017, interest rates were all the way down at 0.1% or 0.5%, below 1%, all the way through to the end of 2021. And then you see that staircase of 12 successive rises, Isabel, as inflation surged and the Bank of England tried to respond. But just imagine, from 2017 onwards, if you took out a 5-year or a 3-year or a 2-year fixed-rate mortgage, you were taking out that mortgage at a very low rate. Now, as those rates have unwound, those 5, 3 and 2-year fixes are expiring by definition. And so you're facing market interest rates which are 2 or 3 times higher than before. And so for a lot of households, particularly people in their 30s and 40s who are stretching themselves just to buy a decent home to raise their families, their mortgage rates, their mortgage payments could double or even triple in some cases. And that's where the pain is going to fall. And a lot of these voters will be in the southeast.
Liam, we hear about the consumer absorbing pain. What about the banks? How much more pain can they absorb?
Well, I don't think the banks are particularly in a weak position, Eamonn, and that's my main point here. I don't want to be here on GB News all day today being catastrophist. I think the banks do have some latitude in their balance sheets, and also politically, and also because, you know, we're in the age of social media. Imagine doing repossessions in the age of social media. You get all these people filming their mates in suburbs being chucked out of their homes. It would be corporate public relations disasters. And so I think the banks will show some leniency in a number of ways. Firstly, I think banks will allow people, hopefully at no cost, with minimum bureaucracy, to extend their mortgage loans from 25 years to 35 or 45. If you do that for a while, as rates rise, your monthly payment or the increase in your monthly payment could be contained. I think banks and building societies will, or at least should, maybe under pressure from ministers, again, without bureaucracy, without fuss, allow you to switch easily from a repayment mortgage to an interest-only mortgage for a while, or even allow you no-charge repayment holidays. I don't think interest rates are going to be really high for long. They will come down, and I'm hoping banks and building societies will help ordinary households get through this.
Those solutions aren't without problems, though, are they? I mean, what if you're in your later years and you're trying to extend your mortgage? It's not necessarily going to be great if you're, say, 65 and trying to extend your mortgage by 30 years or something like that.
There will be tough cases, Isabel. I absolutely see that. In that case, that person may have to sell their house. They may have to downsize. I don't see lots and lots of repossessions, what we call distressed buyers, forced exits from households happening. I may be wrong, but that's the way I see it now. I think it's also worth saying that as interest rates go up, there'll be lots of GB News viewers and listeners who perhaps have got some savings. If the banks are showing forbearance with homeowners, they need to show forbearance with savers as well. Let's start passing these interest rate rises on for once.
Yeah.
Whoever got, you know, for years, no one's got any interest on their savings. And that's been a lot of the problem as well. So we'll know at 12 o'clock if the Bank of England, how much it's going to raise interest rates by. It's either going to be a quarter point or a half point. There will be lots of pain, but I don't think it's all doom and gloom.
OK, thank you,
Liam, appreciate that. We'll hear more from Liam throughout the programme and throughout the station today. The editor of Spike magazine listening to that, Tom Slater, on this one. Has the Bank of England, how much responsibility do you think the Bank of England should bear for the situation that we're in, or is this out of their control?
Well, it's a difficult one, because on the one hand, I think that it often suits the government that the Bank of England is independent. They can kind of hide behind it. They can kind of dodge some accountability. But at the same time, when you look at Andrew Bailey, who's never made a prediction that wasn't proved disastrously wrong, was saying relatively recently that the inflation would be transitory. And also there's been a lot of discussion about people who had got mortgages, who were particularly exposed to this because of the fact that they secured mortgages at a time when those interest rates were very low. You know, 5 years ago, the Bank of England was talking about rates remaining low for decades. Low for long was the expression that you often heard. So you can't really blame individual mortgage holders for listening to what was then the kind of expert advice, essentially. So I think what I'm struck by more than anything else is whether we're talking about the government or whether we're talking about the Bank of England, the supposed adults in the room, the technocrats, the ones who are supposed to steady the ship in difficult times, have failed again. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are going to be thinking about as they look at their personal finances.
Right, Tom Slater from Spiked, thanks very much indeed. We'll be talking more about that story this hour. We've got the government on in the next few minutes, and we've also got the Shadow Financial Secretary to the Treasury, so we're discussing it all with both of them.
From ULEZ to noise levels, next we're going to be asking if councils have too much power over your life. Next.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to 7:23, still to come on today's programme.
Just after 7:30, we're going to be talking to the Foreign Secretary. He's talking about the UK's support for Ukraine getting into NATO.
And at 7:45, ahead of the Bank of England's interest rate decision today, we'll also be speaking to the Labour Party about the potential looming recession and what they plan to try and do to tackle the mortgage crisis.
Yeah, they want support for your mortgage. What do you think about that? You can join in any of our discussions. GB Views at gbnews.com. You can tweet at GB News. Get this, your local authority now can make it a criminal offence if you set a firework on fire in a private property, in a garden, something like that, and the maximum fine could be
£5,000 or 6 months in prison, as if our prisons aren't full enough. Well, this morning we have councils. We're asking this morning if councils are becoming too controlling, and we are indeed speaking to, this morning, Holly Whitbread, Conservative councillor for Epping and Thaydon in Essex, as well as the newspaper editor, former newspaper editor, columnist and regular here on GB News, Dawn Neeson, about all of this.
We see, this isn't as bad as it sounds. They can designate, Dawn. They can designate. So fireworks are a particular nuisance in a certain area. They could ban them from certain areas, but it's not that every firework that you would light you would be sent to prison for or fined.
Hold on a minute. Like, councils like the government at the moment are just completely losing the plot. We pay them, right? They're meant to be on our side. They're meant to be making life better, but they're not. They're acting like Tin Pot Hitlers in this, aren't they? It's like 6 months in prison, right? You can get that for carrying a knife and threatening somebody with a knife. It's ridiculous. And this law includes sparklers. I'm sorry, if I want to wave a sparkler around in my back garden, I don't want to be a criminal for that. It's just going too far. It's like, you know, the mysterious big plant plots that arrived in our streets during lockdown. Councils didn't consult anyone with that, they just bunged them there. And the little speed limits as well. Suddenly last night, a 20-mile-an-hour zone appeared at the end of my road. No one asked me whether I needed it or anything like that. It's just going too far. It's like, you know, as I said, we pay the wages of councillors and politicians, and they are there to help us. At least talk to us before doing these things. I'm not a criminal for waving a sparkler. I'm sorry.
And we are paying more in council tax than ever. And, you know, a lot of these councils are going into administration, not managing that money particularly well. You can understand why people are fed up with their councillors. Is this overreach?
You can see why people are frustrated in some circumstances, and actually some of these low traffic zones I really disagree with. But what I would say about this firework legislation, it can be a huge problem in terms of antisocial behaviour. I know in Epping Forest, where I'm from, there's been people who've misused fireworks. So I think it's not about being a killjoy, but using the powers in the right way, because actually this can cost thousands of pounds in police time or council officer time. So a lot of this will be about reducing the impact on the taxpayer as well.
Sorry,
this
putting them in
legislation.
prison is going to have a huge impact on the taxpayer.
Of course, yeah, but I think that would be used very, very rarely. This is more about kind of tackling those issues of antisocial behaviour. So I can see why that's been used. But, you know, when it comes to council management, that's why we're a democracy, and every 4 years councils are up for election. If they do mismanage funds, they should be held to account for that.
Yeah, and it's good to know there's some recourse for people who are bullied and victimised with fireworks being put through their letter boxes and various things like this. And who's speaking for the pets? That you know, when these things go off and they just send pets and farm animals and all sorts of things into terrible, terrible distress. Surely the time for fireworks is gone.
No, absolutely not. You can get silent fireworks, so you don't have to actually have the very loud bangs that frighten animals. But I think, you know, if you're talking about fireworks in general, an organised display is probably the way to do it, rather than just having random fireworks in your back garden. I completely understand that, and I do understand that for animals it is very distressing. But there are already criminal laws in this country, government criminal laws against buying fireworks and when you can use them. The government have already done that. So why local councils then have to add another layer of bureaucracy onto this, and fines and potential imprisonment? I mean, sort of like, you know, in theory, the law says that you can only actually set off fireworks on bonfire
Why is
night.
that, Holly? Is that to give it the personal touch? Is that to bespoke, tailor legislation?
I think so. I mean, it means that you can deal with specific issues in local areas, and I'm not against firework displays and people having fun, but I am against people misusing it and making other people's lives a misery. And actually it takes some pressure off the police if council ASB officers can look at tackling where there are specific issues as well.
Can I just ask a quick question, Holly, as a councillor? So, I mean, you know, like if you spot your neighbour using a hose pipe during the hose pipe ban, there's a grass line, isn't there? No pun intended on the grassing. But you can phone up and say, my neighbour's using the hose pipe. Are councils then going to have sort of like firework hotlines, no pun intended again, where you can phone up if you've got someone waving a sparkler in their back garden? Can you phone up and say, oh, they're waving a sparkler, they're setting off fireworks?
I can't see this being a council's #1 priority. You know, when I go into my council meeting, the main things we're talking about is council housing, pressures on budgets. There are priorities, but actually there are specific times of the year where there are challenges around people misusing fireworks. So I can't see, you know, it's not going to be the primary focus of what councils are doing, but it does make life easier when there are real issues that need tackling locally.
I think the wider issue is mission creep on all of this one. You know, when do councils stop sticking their nose into things? When is it appropriate for them to do that and tailor things to their local area, or when is it beyond them?
Yeah, well, it's talking about, you know, putting more power to councils, which I think is a good thing if councils are run properly and effectively. Actually, you see a good example is with mayors, which is not quite councils, but like the Tees Valley Authority. Ben Houchin has brought in billions of pounds of investment to thousands of new jobs. That's a good thing when local government has more power and is run effectively.
We have to leave it there. We have to say thank you to you both, because we have to make time for the Foreign Secretary, who'll be coming on the programme in just a minute. But for now, Dawn Neeson, Holly Whitford. Thank you both.
If you've got a view, register it with us, gbviews@gbnews.com, or you can tweet at GBNews.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB Newsers, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in their home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Look, the economy featuring very heavily throughout the news today, and earlier on I was asking, what are you doing? Everything is costing more. What are you doing to cut back? Stephen, good morning, Stephen. I'm not cutting back on anything. I work extra to maintain a lifestyle that I'm used to, and I agree with that, and I've applied that to my whole life. If you're lucky enough to be freelance, and you can take on more work, but what if you're on a fixed income?
Well, absolutely, and people working around the clock as it is.
And your mortgage increases, your mortgage doubles,
No disposable
you've nowhere to
income,
go.
Plus everything at the supermarket costing a fortune. Lender says, I refuse to pay unreasonable increases in supermarkets. I just buy the basics, i.e. vegetables and mostly chicken for my main meals, cereals and fruits for breakfast, leave the pre-packed ready meals on the shelves and buy bare essentials.
This is quite sad, John says, and this is the reality. Energy price increases, petrol price increases, mortgages through the roof, food price increases. We have no money, full stop. And that is it. And that's why I take a lot of politicians to account on this. The cupboard is bare. The cupboard is bare. There's nothing there. And yet they all pretend about you know, we can spend on this and we can do that, and how do we cost all these things? That is the question.
Well, let's speak now to the Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, who is joining us now. And I'm sure you'll be hearing some of what we were just saying there, Foreign Secretary, discussing what we're expected to hear in terms of interest rates later on. A lot more pain for homeowners, many of whom will be remortgaging over the next few months. I don't know if you personally have a mortgage, if this affects you.
Well, look, this affects all of us in one way or another, whether you rent, whether you have a mortgage. And of course, we do recognise that interest rates affect, as I say, everybody, and we want to make sure that we address the issues that are driving those rates up. This is one of the reasons why we are discussing the war in Ukraine, because, of course, that conflict has driven up energy prices around the world. It's disrupted grain exports from Ukraine, which then push food prices up around the world, triggering that inflation interest rate cycle that we intend to break. And the Prime Minister is committed to do so, and right across government we're working to do that.
I mean, people are beginning to lose sympathy perhaps with that argument when they look around the world at the way that other countries are managing those pressures that you describe. It certainly feels as though Britain is struggling the most when it comes to inflation and interest rates. You look to the States, you look to Europe. We're in the worst position on this. How long can you play that line?
Well, I think you'll find that whether it's the USA, Canada, Australia or New Zealand, we're all seeing similar levels of inflationary pressure. We're not going to be absolutely identical to other countries around the world, of course not, but we're all seeing those inflationary pressures. And of course, in the UK, the Bank of England is responsible for setting interest rates, and it does so to comply with the inflation targets that are set by government. But the Prime Minister is committed to bringing those interest rates down, halve those interest rates this year, to grow the economy, to reduce debt. This is absolutely the economic focus of the government, and we will be taking action to drive those things forward. And I think it is the duty of government. We are relentlessly focused on that.
What's the point of having a Ukraine recovery conference when you don't even know that they're going to win the war?
Oh, no, I do know they're going to win the war, Eamonn. They are definitely going to win the war. I've seen the resilience and the resolve of the Ukrainians, both here in London and on my visits to Ukraine. So I'm in no doubt about that at all. And actually what we saw over the winter, for example, is those municipal heroes, those people working to repair the energy infrastructure, to keep the lights on, to keep the heating going, to keep the water flowing. These people need and deserve our support. So whilst they are making steady, methodical progress in the conflict in the east and the south, they need support from the international community, not just the UK, but from the international community, to repair that infrastructure so they can get that grain growing, so they can export that food, that they can keep their own energy needs addressed, and ultimately, of course, go back to the point where they can be an energy exporter. It's good for Ukraine, it's good for the UK, it's good for the world.
One of the issues of why the war kicked off, of course, was Russia's great fear that Ukraine would be part of NATO. What support have you got for this move in saying, yeah, we want them as a member of NATO?
Well, the irony of Putin's invasion of Ukraine was it triggered both Finland and Sweden to apply to join NATO. And these were two countries who for decades had not looked to join NATO. Countries join NATO to defend themselves. NATO is a purely defensive alliance, and Russia's illegal, unprecedented, unjustifiable invasion of Ukraine stimulated a number of countries to apply to join NATO. NATO, back in Bucharest over a decade ago, made the commitment that Ukraine was on a pathway to membership. We've seen Ukraine do an incredible job on the battlefield, revolutionise how they operate, modernise very, very quickly. And that will inevitably mean their journey to NATO membership will be quicker than it might otherwise have been. But ultimately, the job in here and now is to support them in their self-defence, to support them in their recovery and their rebuild.
And ultimately, we wanted to lead NATO in all of this. The US has just knocked us back on that. How much of a blow for you, for us, is that?
Well, I think it's worth recognising that that leadership process has not formally started. The point that we've always made is that we need a strong leadership of NATO at this point in time. But as I say, there isn't a formal process. I know there's a huge amount of speculation about who the next Secretary General might be and which countries might support what individual, but there is no formal start to that leadership
Still in the running
process
then?
yet. Well, the point is that the race hasn't started. And what is more important, and actually the things that I focused on when I was recently in Oslo with the NATO foreign ministers, is working to ensure that Sweden joins and they complete their accession process quickly, that we continue to support Ukraine in its self-defence, but also that NATO stays focused on its own modernisation process to make sure it can defend member states not just against traditional physical attacks, but also the threats that we all now face in the digital sphere, for example.
Foreign Secretary, got to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time and good luck with the conference. Thank you very much.
Well, we go straight into our interview now with the Labour MP James Murray, the Shadow Financial Secretary to the Treasury. Very good morning to you. We're hearing reports that the Chancellor is fed up with the Bank of England, that he thinks that they've been too dovish in their language and their interest rate rises in terms of trying to get a hold of inflation. Do you have faith in the Bank of England?
I think people are fed up of this government. The Bank of England has independence. We support that independence. We want to let them do their job. I think the government should focus on doing its job. The government should be providing stability and certainty for our economy. They should be using all the levers that they have to help people who are facing mortgage rates going up and up. And they should really get their own house in order and focus on that.
How can you support help, financial help, which has been ruled out by the government so far, James, but you think you've got a way to do it? I mean, people will be crying out for this, but it's controversial, isn't it? Because some people have chosen to take on a mortgage, some people have chosen not to because they just couldn't afford it in the first place. Tell us what your plan is.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, people are really worried right now. We've already had 700,000 people who've remortgaged this year so far. By the end of the year, there will have been another 700,000 people remortgaging. And, the people who are going to be affected by mortgage rates going up are people who have saved for a deposit, who've bought a house, and who are going out to work every day to try and meet their mortgage repayments. So what we're saying is the government should follow our 5-point plan that we set out today, which would require lenders to allow borrowers to switch to interest-only mortgages for a temporary time period or extend the length of their mortgage term. And it would also require lenders to wait a minimum of 6 months before initiating any repossession proceedings. That's the kind of targeted help that we need, and that's what the government should be doing so that working people don't have to face this crisis alone.
Do you think recession is now inevitable, and do you share the views of the Chancellor that he's actually comfortable with that in order for this whole situation to be addressed?
Well, look, I think it's an astonishing situation to be in where the Chancellor is talking like that. The government should be focusing on getting the economy back on track, on getting the economy growing. We are behind our other nations in similar situations in terms of economic growth. We've had 13 years of low growth. The government should be focused on economic stability, on making sure that we're investing in our security of our economy, including energy security, and getting good jobs right across the UK.
Well, we'll leave it there. Good to talk to you, James Murray, Shadow Financial Secretary to the Treasury. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, let's go through the papers now. We've got Freddie Gray and Emma Burnell with this. And Emma, I don't know if you've ever been a smoker in the past, but the Telegraph were talking about a health story on the front page here, and that the NHS may be introducing lung cancer tests for every ex-smoker.
Ex and current smokers, of which I'm afraid to say I am one. I gave up for ages, well over 5 years. The theatre drove me back to it. But I think this is a really good plan, not just because I would personally benefit, but also I think for the NHS, one of the things that is quite often thrown at the NHS is that it's very reactive. It's an illness service, not a wellness service. So actually screening early will both help them to intervene much, much earlier, which means there'll be much better survival rates, but also will save money in the long run because they'll need far less of the more expensive treatments that are needed when you get to stage 3 and 4 cancer. If they can find it at stage 1 and 2, they can treat it quicker and easier. So I think this is a really great scheme. While it sounds like spending a lot of money, actually prevention is better than cure, both in terms of the way that people's own health, but also in terms of the health of the NHS.
It really feels like there's loads of progress being made in terms of early detection of cancers. I mean, this new blood test that we keep hearing about when it becomes available in the next few years, which can test for all early signs of sort of abnormal cells, is going to be a game changer. I'm desperate to have one of these tests.
Absolutely. It just feels... I remember 20 years ago there was a joke in the TV show The West Wing about how they were going to announce they were going to cure cancer, and it was just seemed so like a moonshot thing that they called it. And now it just feels like we're on the cusp of really getting to the grips with this thing that kills so many people. And obviously, there are people like myself who are putting ourselves at risk every time I have a cigarette, and I accept that and I know that, and I wish that I didn't do it. But there are lots and lots of people also who are not in that situation who will be stricken with this awful disease.
My worry is, from my teenage years into my early 20s, working in a bar was just thick with acrid smoke.
Yeah.
Breathing it in, having it on my clothes and my hair, whatever.
No, and it's extraordinary.
So although I've never smoked,
As a smoker, the one thing that has really changed, I've never smoked indoors these days. It just feels so counterintuitive. Even when in the depths of winter you go outside and shiver in your big coat.
Yeah.
And that is a really good thing for exactly people like you who should not be subjected to it.
Yeah. OK, Freddie, you heard us talking to James Cleverly there about NATO and Ukraine. He's in favour of Ukraine being part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation. Blocked by Joe Biden, though.
Yes, well, Ben Wallace has had his eye on this Secretary-General job for a while. It's quite well paid. His political career is probably winding down, so it'd be a pretty good gig for him. And the theory, the rumour that was going around was that Jill Biden didn't want him to be Secretary-General. It's not really any of her business, but apparently she wanted a woman in the role and didn't think Ben Wallace was right, and that was pressuring Joe Biden. That was only a rumour, hasn't really been stood up. But The Sun are reporting today that Joe Biden is opposing Ben Wallace. He actually apparently wants Mark Rutte, which is a Dutch minister. I think Ben Wallace has had his reputation has improved because he seemed to have been very reactive on Ukraine. He's sort of been the tip of the spear, if you like, in the Western response. But I think there's a lot of behind-the-scenes haggling going on.
Well, James Cleverly seemed to think it was still very much a possibility that we could be getting the top job. I wonder if Boris Johnson was in the running or if he would have ever liked that as a prize.
There was a lot of talk of that. I don't think he was ever that interested in it, but certainly it was mentioned a lot. I thought it was very interesting when you asked Cleverly about, how do you know that the war's going to be won?
Yes.
And he said, I'm absolutely confident. I mean, I wonder, can we be that certain?
Well, he has to say it, doesn't he?
You have to say it.
Yeah,
I bet he hasn't got a mortgage.
Well, he didn't answer that question.
He dodged that twice.
It matters to us all.
No, he got that.
How can you not have a mortgage?
Well, you could buy a house that wasn't hugely expensive back in the day and have paid it off already. No idea. It could have been in the forces, have a generous forces pension that's paid it off. I don't know. Lots of people live mortgage-free, it seems. Not me. Let's talk about kids falling short.
Not you for a long while.
I just got a 40-year
Not me either. Yeah.
Austerity being blamed for the lack of height in the UK. Goodness me.
Yeah, it seems UK kids are falling significantly shorter in all terms of those words than their counterparts elsewhere. We've fallen from 69th in the International League tables of heights, 69th out of 200. that are measured to boys are 102 and girls are 96 now in terms of height. Slightly more worrying in the Mirror story, I think that, there are statistical reasons and family reasons, actually. My grandfather was one of the people who pioneered measuring children's height statistics and why they're important to children's health. But equally, in that Mirror story, what really jumped out at me was that there's been an extraordinary increase in poorer areas of scurvy and rickets. These are things that you just think belong to the history books.
Yeah.
And that they're coming back is so worrying.
Yeah.
It does feel like a Victorian problem that has just re-emerged.
And we had TB re-emerge a few years ago as well, and you just think, my God, that's consumption.
Yeah.
You know, that's what Victorian ladies coughing into their handkerchiefs were dying of.
Well, Freddie, you'll have had to whisk your kids off to get inoculated for that, wouldn't you? Everyone under 9...
Yes.
Last year, we all got warned in London where they're all going to get TB. We all had to go and get extra jabs.
Well, my children are very short anyway. We're a family of hobbits.
Which goes to show this is a nonsense theory, because there's no austerity in the Grey household, and Her Majesty the Queen was absolutely tiny, and the King now, King Charles is tiny as well, and they've got as much privilege and access to...
It's about averages, Isabel. It's about statistical averages.
Yeah, he is
Grandpa would be very cross with you.
If you see King Charles next to Prince William and Kate, he's half the size almost. He's looking up at them.
It depends whether you're an endomorph or an ectomorph. If you're an ectomorph, you've long legs and a shortish body, maybe a long body. I'm an endomorph. I've got short legs and a long body.
That works well for the TV, doesn't it?
Yes. But I think there's an onus on all parents here that no matter what the budget's like at home, to realise that the kids still need some fresh fruit and vegetables in here, and it's not just their responsibility. You just can't keep giving them packet stuff and processed stuff and whatever. So children are shorter than they used to be. There you go.
What about beer prices? Are they shorter than they used to be?
Well, Glastonbury, the cost of living crisis is not apparently affecting people at Glastonbury. It's £7 a pint, £12.50, I think, for a Jack Daniels and Coke, which is a popular drink at festivals.
See, no wonder you have no money.
It used to be...
about that mortgage of yours. This is the problem.
I don't drink Jack Daniels and Coke, just FYI.
It's, when Glastonbury started in 1970, I think it started, it was £1 to enter. A ticket now is £350 minimum.
Is it? Yeah. For one person?
I think so, yeah. 335, I think it is.
Crazy.
And,
it's very middle class.
It is an extremely middle-class event. And Emma, I think you'll enjoy this. It's the politics tent, the left field area, where Billy Bragg lectures you about social justice while you drink your £12.50 Jack Daniels and Coke. It's a bit rank, Glastonbury. I know it's a bit easy to mock Glastonbury.
I was reading that the Co-op now have delivery points within Glastonbury. There are like 6 or 10 delivery points. The Co-op have done a deal, so you can phone the Co-op when you're...
Can you get delivery beer? That'll save you a fortune.
I'd have thought Waitrose would have been more Glasto.
Well, it's Co-op.
It's Co-op.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good deal for the Co-op.
You know why everything is so expensive at Glastonbury is to pay for the acts. I mean, they charge an absolute fortune to be, top dog on the pyramid stage and on the big night. That's passed on to the...
Yeah, and it's interesting because Glastonbury used to be very much an alternative festival. It was, kind of the acts that you saw weren't the biggest acts in the world. They were kind of on the more cutting edge side, and I think it's very much gone mainstream.
I'll leave you with this thought. When I started as a barman in 1976, a pint of lager or a pint of bitter was 25p. And then there was uproar as within the next year and a half or so, it went to 50p a pint. Yeah.
London, it's 7 is about the average now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Right, Freddie, great. Emma Burnell, thank you. More from both of them just after 8:30.
Stay with us. We're going to have the latest on the missing sub oxygen supply. The fear is it could run out by 10 o'clock this morning.
First, though, here's your forecast with Aidan McGibbon.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's another bright, sunny start for many of us today, and it's going to be another very warm one, especially towards the southeast. As the warmth builds, again, a few showers will develop, but fewer, and certainly fewer thunderstorms compared with recent days. Many places will actually have a dry day, especially if you're in the north, central belt northwards across Scotland, or in the far south and southeast. Plenty of sunny skies continuing. In between, especially through this central swathe of the UK, the Midlands into northern England, East Wales, there will be some fairly lively showers developing, even some thunderstorms. Away from the showers, mid to high 20s, 29 in London, low 20s for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Then any showers that do develop will die away as the sun goes down, and then clear spells for many overnights. But what we're seeing over the next few days actually is an increase in humidity coming up from the south and southwest. So it's a muggier night, a more uncomfortable night for sleeping compared with recent nights, 16 to 18 Celsius in the south, 13 or 14 further north. And for Western Scotland, Northern Ireland, a cloudy start to Friday. Outbreaks of rain from the word go. This is showery rain, that'll be on and off, but there'll be some heavier bursts indicated by the bright colours there moving through Northern Ireland and southwest Scotland into Friday. That rain eventually reaching parts of Cumbria as well as West Wales by the end of the afternoon. Ahead of that, 1 or 2 showers possible for East Anglia, but otherwise actually plenty of sunshine for central and eastern areas, and again 29 Celsius the expected high, whilst it'll feel a bit cooler, although still quite humid for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Scotland and Northern Ireland will continue to be affected by weather fronts moving up from the southwest into the weekend. Some persistent rain at times. This also occasionally affecting Northern England and North Wales. With that changeable weather, temperatures will be at around the low to mid-20s, but towards the south and southeast, those temperatures will get even higher, up to 30 or 31 Celsius.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6 is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Time is running out in the hunt for the Titanic sub, as the Coast Guard says he has hope he can save those on board.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock on Thursday the 22nd of June. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Well, wherever you're watching us from this morning, wherever you're listening, we appreciate your company, and here's what's leading the news.
The search for the missing Titan submersible reaches a critical moment as estimates suggest the air supply on board could run out in 2 hours' time. A French robot sub that can dive to 6,000 metres has arrived in the area and could be the last hope for those on board.
Warnings that a recession is now inevitable as the Bank of England prepares to hike interest rates for the 13th consecutive time later today.
The Foreign Secretary told us bringing down inflation is the main focus for the government.
We're not going to be absolutely identical to other countries around the world, of course not. But we're all seeing those inflationary pressures. The Prime Minister is committed to bringing those interest rates down, halve those interest rates this year, to grow the economy, to reduce debt. This is absolutely the economic focus of the government.
As the Women's Ashes gets underway, we'll find out if England have what it takes to beat Australia.
Yeah, hopefully they fare better than the men did at Edgbaston as that starts at 11 o'clock this morning. The Chelsea fire sale has begun and Wimbledon have disrespected Andy Murray.
Oh, they so have. And will it be storms or sunshine for you as you head into the weekend? A bit early to talk about the weekend, isn't it?
Well, no, but the Ashes, we've got Glastonbury. We'll be finding out what the weather's getting up to in our forecast.
For many, but not for all, temperatures will be shooting up over the next few days. How hot will it get? I'll have the full details in the weather forecast coming up soon.
Top story this morning. The race to rescue people trapped on board the Submersible continues this morning amid estimates that the oxygen supply could run out at approximately 10 o'clock this morning.
Well, speaking last night, the Coast Guard captain, Jamie Frederick, said he had hope that those on board could still be saved.
When you're in the middle of a search and rescue case, you always have hope. That's why we're doing what we do. With respect to the noises specifically, we don't know what they are. To be frank with you, the P3 detected noises. That's why they're up there. That's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why they put sonar buoys in the water. The good news is, what I can tell you is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected, and we'll continue to do so. This is a search and rescue mission, 100%. We are smack dab in the middle of search and rescue, and we'll continue to put every available asset that we have in an effort to find the Titan and the crew members.
Well, the search is currently focused on a point in the North Atlantic where the sound of banging has been detected with a French vessel carrying out a state-of-the-art underwater robot search, and it's on its way to the area.
Well, here's Paul Hawkins. He's been following everything that has been going on this morning. What's the latest, Paul?
Yeah, so I've been tracking this French research vessel, the L'Atalante, which has a Victor 6000 ROV on it, state-of-the-art remote-operated vehicle that can reach the bottom of the Atlantic. It's equipped with state-of-the-art sort of acoustic monitors, cameras. It's got robotic arms that potentially can help them, first of all, find the vessel, and then it could help with the salvage operation. It can't bring it back to the surface, but it can use those robotic arms to free it from the wreckage if it's entangled in the wreckage or in the rocks or so forth.
But to be clear, what help is that when you are battling against the clock in terms of the oxygen supply for those who are trapped on board if you can't actually bring the vessel up to the surface? It's fine with a recovery, but not with a rescue operation, presumably.
Well, no, yeah, well, so the great thing about this ROV is, first of all, it can go very deep. It's got sophisticated technology, this French Victor 6000, And then it can assist with the recovery operation. So there's a US Navy salvage vessel that's on its way, and that can the US Navy use this to retrieve planes from the bottom of the ocean, shipwrecks, etc. So it can lift an enormous weight. One would have thought that the French research vehicle could work in tandem with the US Navy wreckage ship on the surface to attach something to it and then put it back to surface. But first of all, they've got to find it. And that's the big problem at the moment, because they've been hearing these periodic sounds, right, using a sonar, and they can pinpoint the locality of where it is, but then it's difficult for the devices in the water that they send to the bottom to hear the sounds themselves. So there's still a little bit of, metaphorically and literally speaking, searching in the dark.
But this banging is what you would do in a crisis if you were those on board. Just tell us a little bit about why that is being attached to Hope at the moment.
Because anyone who works at sea is told that when you're in an emergency and you're under the water, to use SOS, to use regular banging on the hull every half an hour in a regular pattern, something that simply wouldn't be repeated by natural variation in the wreckage in the water by other wildlife. So that's why they're attaching so much hope to this. They haven't said it is definitely humans. They have said it could be something else in the water, but certainly the regular pattern of the noises that are being made would indicate that it could potentially be the people.
And Paul, you were saying earlier, I mean, this is still very much a search and rescue mission, and you were saying actually there is some hope on how much oxygen there is left. I mean, it's been widely reported that oxygen will run out at 10 a.m. this morning, but it could actually be longer than that.
Yeah, it could be, yeah. At 6 p.m. yesterday, at that press conference, the US Coast Guard said there were 20 hours of oxygen left. That would take us to 2 p.m. today. If they have managed to stretch it out, it could go beyond that. Certainly the US Coast Guard isn't going to say, right, it's 2 p.m, now we'll stop it. They're going to carry on, well into the afternoon, well into the evening, because they simply can't give up. And in terms of the progress of this French vessel, we do understand, looking at the website marinetraffic.com, which monitors all these vessels, it's pretty comprehensive. It looks like that this French vessel with this ROV is almost at the site of the Titanic at the moment. So hopefully we'll get an update on that later.
But just you were just saying that there was something that could actually deal with the carbon dioxide that they're breathing out.
Filter.
Yeah,
filters, scrubbers. So I've heard mixed reports about whether there are scrubbers there to clean the air. If there are, obviously that would help them. But in any case, they're going to be taking measures. The experienced explorers who are down there will be making sure everyone in that vessel exhales as little carbon dioxide as possible.
Well, they've got to find it in the first place. Paul, thank you very much indeed. Here's Dr. Jamie Pringle. Dr. Pringle is a reader in forensic geosciences. And Dr. Pringle, from your point of view, you can put it into some sort of perspective for us as the immense task which is facing those who are searching.
That's right, and Paul's given a good example of some of the challenges already. I could add a little bit to that, I guess, because don't forget, we don't know where the sub is. This French development is really exciting. The US Coast Guard just released a graphic of the search patterns that they've been doing so far to try and find this. And of course, you've got a massive water depth, so that's one issue. Obviously, currents moving potentially if this is not able to travel under its own steam. So that's one big issue. The second issue, of course, if it is on the bottom, the bottom of the ocean floor is not flat. It's very rugged, more rugged than above sea level. It might be in a submarine canyon or something hard to find, or it might be in the Titanic debris field itself, which covers quite a large area, and then you're trying to find a small sub versus with trying to work out where it is compared to all the other material that's down there. So those are big issues, and as we say, the oxygen is time critical today.
Yeah. When people say it's like looking for a needle in a haystack, how far-fetched is that, or how accurate is that analogy?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one, Eamonn. It's more like a mine in a minefield, because you're trying to differentiate one thing from lots of other things. I guess that it could be down there. And then if you do find it, of course, as Paul's already mentioned, if it is entangled in some material, you've got to untangle it and get it to the surface and get those bolts out as well. So it is a big search. I'm trying to think of some similar cases in the past. There was a submarine, the San Juan, in 2017, the Argentinian one, where banging noises were heard, but weren't in the end were thought not to be come from the actual submarine. So that was one issue. And obviously the Emiliana Sala case with a crashed aircraft in the English Channel a few years ago. But again, that's a much shallower sea level, and it was a lot easier to find. So this is a really challenging search.
Given the criticisms that have started to be levelled, indeed, from the family of some of those inside the submersible, that the reaction's been too slow of the operator to raise the alarm, there have also been criticisms about whether it was properly regulated, the condition of the vessel. Given your expertise, would you have been happy to have gone down in the Titan?
So I'm not a submarine expert, and I certainly there's for whatever reason they've gone down as a tourist trip. I don't want to speculate on that, but certainly it's a really hard, challenging area to go to, even if you're an experienced researcher and submariner, I think, as your colleagues have said. So a tough place to visit, if not recover from.
Doctor, would you be surprised if the sub was found?
I mean, everyone's hopeful, and as US Coast Guard have said, they will keep searching. And as Paul's mentioned, the oxygen could last longer than an estimate. I mean, it is only an estimate. There could be there's a retired French diver, I think, on there, so he'll know exactly what to do and how to help his colleagues who are with him. But the golden hours of survival is the first 24, from everything from earthquake disasters to everything else. So the longer the time frame, the lower the chances. So it does happen. You see. Fishing vessels that have gone down, and after 2 or 3 days, they actually find a survivor who's in a pocket of air. So it is possible, and it has happened in the past. But certainly from this depth, it's hope is not high, shall we say?
OK, Dr. Jamie Pringle with that. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. Warnings that a recession's now inevitable amid predictions that the Bank of England could hike interest rates by 0.5% today.
It would be the bank's 13th consecutive rise and comes as inflation remains stubbornly high at 8.7%, despite predictions that it would fall.
Well, earlier, the Foreign Secretary told us on this programme that it was the government's focus to get inflation down.
The Prime Minister is committed to bringing those interest rates down, halve those interest rates this year, to grow
What's
the
a good
economy,
angle to start with?
to reduce debt. This is absolutely the
Is Rishi
economic
going to
focus
fulfil his
of the
pledge?
government, and we will be taking action to drive those things forward. And I think it is the duty of government. We are relentlessly focused on that.
That's the Foreign Secretary speaking half an hour ago on this programme. Speaking now, our economics and business editor, Liam Halligan. This was one of the Prime Minister's 5 aims, 5 targets to get inflation down.
When he made that pledge, Eamonn, of course, inflation was about 10.5%. So halving it by the end of the year would mean 5%. And he may not make it. And it's not even his pledge to fulfil. It's up to the Bank of England to get inflation down. It's their remit, and that's why the Bank of England has raised interest rates now 12 times in a row, and we're probably going to see another rate rise today. Let's have a look at the path of interest rates over recent years. Back in 2017, the Bank of England's interest rate was very, very low, all the way through to the end of 2021. Then we had that surge in inflation before the war in Ukraine, then during the war in Ukraine. There's the increase in interest rates. And if you think back to 2017, for the 5 years after that, people were fixing their mortgages for 5 years, 3 years, 2 years. Those rates are now starting to unwind. That's why people are facing much, much higher mortgage rates. About 150,000 households each month are having to remortgage at these much higher rates.
We didn't know we were living, and if you look at that graph, I mean, are you basically saying fundamentally we can put all of the rate rise at the door of the pandemic and the war in Ukraine?
Now, I think a lot of the rate rises also come from the fact, and this is a more controversial view, from the fact that the Bank of England, for 10 years after the global financial crisis in 2008, was massively creating more money, so-called quantitative easing. That is now coming home to roost. There are a few of us in the media who were criticising at the time. We were literally seen as beyond the pale. That is the reason, in my view, why what we call core inflation, the kind of nub of inflation, which actually went up when the figures came out yesterday, and I think that's what's driving these price rises and pushing this cost of living squeeze onto more and more people.
And given those stubborn and very sticky results results yesterday on inflation. Some suggestions we could see a rate rise today of up to 0.5%. There was a time, though, when that was good news for savers. But no one's reaping any benefits from this, just pain. Why?
So you're saying it's only costing us more, they're not giving us anything
there used to
back?
be a time where it was good for savers if interest rates were high.
Because banks and building societies are very, very quick to pass interest rate rises on to mortgage holders, but they're very, very slow to pass interest rate rises on to savers, of course. And I just wanted to pick up the Foreign Secretary on something else that he said. It wasn't actually right. He said we've got similar rates of inflation here in the UK to America. We haven't. America's rate of inflation now, ours is 8.7. Theirs is 4%. Why is that? Because the Federal Reserve was more bold when it raised interest rates last year. It went for big half-point rises. It really bared down on inflation. And also because in the US, energy is much, much, much cheaper because they are actually making more use of their domestic oil and gas than we are.
You know, the government bailed out some of these banks, some of these lenders to a great degree and still hold...
After 2008?
Yeah, still hold great shares in them. What is the argument for the financial institutions being told to, or can they be forced to say, oi, soak up a bit more of this, protect people out there, and you guys take a bit more pain?
Because if you're trying to get your arms around inflation, Eamonn, if you're trying to stop this real compounding of price rises that we've got now, it makes no logical sense to raise interest rates to try and take demand out of the economy to squeeze inflation, but at the same time to put demand back in the economy by giving, you know, often middle-class people money. I mean, what are renters going to think, or people who aren't on the housing ladder, if you're giving all this money to kind of Middle England?
That's a fair point.
To Middle England, if you like. And what I think will happen, I said in the previous hour, and I think it's right, I don't think we're going to see lots of these banks and building societies moving to repossess, maybe the way they did in the 90s or even after 2008. I do think in this social media age, they're going to have to show more forbearance. And ministers will prevail on them, and I think the banks and building societies want to do it anyway, extend home loans without fuss and cost, move people onto interest-only mortgages for a while, offer repayment holidays for a while, so we can all get through what I think will be a relatively short period of very high interest rates.
OK. Liam, got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. What time today do we find out what the interest rate will be?
I'm going to hot-foot it now to the Bank of England in Threadneedle Street, just a few minutes away from here, and the interest rate decision will be made at 12 noon.
OK, mate. Thanks very much indeed.
Well, staying with this, let's go to our reporter, Will Hollis. He's in Hull this morning, joined by a mortgage broker. Good morning to you, Will.
Good morning. Yes, we're still a few hours out from that Bank of England announcement, but the day has started here in Hull at UK Moneyman. Of course, we're talking about mortgages. It's been in the news all week. We can't get inflation and interest rates out of the news, and this is the kind of place where people will be calling to find out what is going to happen to their mortgages. And the person on the end of the phone here today, sorry, just remind me of your name and what you're doing here at UK Moneyman.
Joe, I'm one of the case managers.
Joe, just stand up for me so we can get you on the camera. Joe, what are you expecting to hear from people today when they're making the call?
They're going to be really nervous. The base rate's going up and people are worried that the mortgages that they've got are going to go up, in the payments are going to go up, or that they've not secured the right rate and the mortgage payments are going to go up on that one.
Bank of England are announcing this at midday. What's it going to be like until then? And then when we get that announcement, what's it going to be like here at UK Moneyman?
The phones will ring a lot more after lunchtime. As soon as it goes on the news, people just get nervous and they want to check in with us and make sure that they've either made the right decision or they've not made any decision and they need to do something as soon as they can.
What is it they're really nervous about? Is it about suddenly having hundreds of pounds extra to pay every single month, thousands of pounds extra a year, which we know could quite easily happen?
Yeah, exactly that. People are worried that they just can't pay the mortgage that they've got sometimes, let alone the new house that they want or need to move to. So they're really worried.
Joe, I know you've got a busy day, so we'll let you carry on. But the man behind the business here at UK Moneyman here in Hull is Malcolm Davidson. Malcolm, you started this business in 2009. Is this the busiest you've ever been?
Yeah, there's a lot of anxiety out there for people. You know, we had this disastrous mini-budget at the end of 2022 when mortgage rates spiked up, then some confidence returned to the market at the beginning of 2023. We've had a great start to the year. Mortgage rates have been coming down. So those rates at sort of 6.5% we saw at the end of last year, came down. In fact, we got rates down as low as 3.99 quite recently. But of course, this inflation is proving really stubborn, and mortgage rates are going up. Banks are reacting, and we seem to be back to where we started at the end of the end of sort of 2022. And people are worried about how much their mortgage is going to be costing later this year.
We think it's going to go up by 1/4 percentage point. It could even go up by 0.5%. From a mortgage broker's perspective, is that the right thing to be doing to bring down inflation, or is it causing you and your customers problems?
Well, we're just here at the end of the phone to speak to customers to try and make this bad and to make sure that they're on the cheapest deal, not just now, but all the way through the mortgage. We have customers that come back to us year after year to ensure that they're on the cheapest possible deal. In terms of it being the right thing to do, well, this is the only tool that seems to be employed to put interest rates up, to take money out of the economy, to get this inflation down. But it's not working at the moment. The 10%'s gone down to 8% and nowhere near this 3% target, and people will be feeling the squeeze. The mortgage payments are going up on top of everything else that's going up as well.
Malcolm, don't go anywhere. We're sticking around as well, because it is going to be a busy day here at this mortgage broker's in Hull, as well as every single mortgage broker around the country. Eamonn and Isabel.
Good stuff, Will. Thanks very much indeed. They earn their money in situations like this, mortgage brokers, don't they? Trying to help you find a good deal. Everyone's feeling the stress.
People, certain people, there's Amanda, for instance, in Northampton. Hi, Amanda. She says basically, look, it's not all doom and gloom out there. She says, my current lender offered me a new fixed deal of 4.42%. If I fixed it now, and it won't kick in till my existing fixed rate ends. So she's saying that's good news for her. That's the way it is. I don't know what is out there, but as Isabel said, it pays to ask a professional about this one.
Ian says, it's interesting to note the government's mismanagement of the economy during lockdown that has led to the current situation. And, you know, as you were reflecting earlier, people just making these terrible and really difficult decisions. Stephen says, I have cut back on meals and days out. I turn everything off, less use of the car, less extras in the weekly shops. Tough out there.
Yeah. We have this thing on dog kissing today. Why were we talking about dog kissing? A new survey said it spreads germs. Hell surprise. Stephen and Esther says, though, where this obsession with hyper-hygiene, where is it going to end? The human immune system needs to be in contact with bugs to create antibodies.
Bugs and there's bugs.
Well, there's bugs and there's dog poo. You know, there's two different. I mean, that whole. I was upset. Why do dogs smell other dogs' bottoms?
Well, because they get a lot of information from it. Are they
Do
on
they?
heat? Are they young? Are they, I don't know what else, but it gives them all the signals they need. They can't chat like we can. Andrew says, never ever let a dog or any animal lick your face. So unhygienic for the obvious reason. And I too, like Isabel, wash my hands straight away.
And your face and your lips,
Well, I just
hope
wouldn't let
as
a dog
well.
near my face.
Stay with us. The Women's Ashes gets underway. We're going to ask Paul Coyte if England have what it takes to beat Australia. Next.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
27 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening from, you're very welcome. This is Breakfast on GB News. Still to come on this morning's programme, as Joe Cox's widower, Brendan Cox, announces he is remarrying 7 years after the MP and his wife was murdered. We'll ask a grief specialist about moving forward after the death of a partner. When would be a decent period? How long would be a decent period? When is too soon? And what's your view on all of that? There is a man and a lot of washing machines, and the question is, do you wash your clothes after every use? 9:15. We will ask if we rely too much on washing machines and if a simple sniff test could save time, money, and be helpful to the environment, okay? I'm going to ask my friend and colleague beside me now, Paul Coyte. Do you just sniff?
Smell marvellous, by the way. It's definitely clean today, isn't it? Yeah, you didn't wear that at Ascot
But
yesterday.
you know what? We can joke about this, but there are some dirty hellions out there.
Oh yes, there are.
There are.
Have you ever had a friend that's had really smelly feet? You know that situation where I had an old flatmate, and oh my goodness me, it was awful. And then you have to have a quiet word, don't you? And just say, listen,
I know.
You need to change that a little.
And can they not smell this themselves?
I know.
I'm very blessed that I don't have smelly feet.
I'm the same as you. I'm very blessed. Yeah.
I'm not a sweater overall. I don't really sweat like that. However, I still think I wouldn't wear clothes 2 days in a row. I might wear a pullover or a jumper or something like that.
That's all right, yeah.
But, I mean, as regards underpants...
Really, you're clean underpants? Live fast, die young, leave clean underpants. That's the way to go. There you go.
But, you know, what's your view on all of that sort of thing? I'm sure as a child, did we have clean clothes every day? I'm sure we did. But can't remember. GBViews at gbnews.com, where you can tweet at GB News. So some cracking interviews coming up on that front. Back pages this morning. Let's see what sports news they're conveying. Mounting cost, spelled M-O-U-N-T-I-N-G, as a reference to Mason Mount there. Manchester United have bid 50 million quid for him, but been rejected by Chelsea. What's going to be the price that makes them sway on that one? They are having a £200 million clear-out, says the Telegraph, and there are lots of players set to leave the club. We're going to be talking about that very shortly. And finally, don't stop believing. Guardian, Brendan McCullum defends England's tactics in the first Ashes test. I wonder would Paul Coyte defend those tactics as well? What did you think? How would you sum it up?
What of the
performance or how they lost?
I think Ashes. We can look back at it and go, well, the declaration maybe was early and maybe behind the stumps there we had Johnny Bairstow dropped a few and maybe should have stumped.
But it was avoidable, wasn't it?
But the thing is, the perfect performance. That's what you're looking for, always the perfect. There's such a thing as an absolutely perfect performance. Yeah. But I thought it was a great test. Right. And I love the way England are playing. I think it's entertaining. And they're not going to change. They're going to go out and play the way they are.
And
Joe Root has now
the women come into play as from today.
Yeah, that's right. And Australia, haven't beaten Australia in the women's Ashes. We're looking at nearly a decade. So it is going to be tricky. So they've started Edgbaston today. So, I mean, a double win would be great. A double loss would be a disaster. But let's keep our fingers crossed. So that begins today. And then the next men's Ashes second test is next week, and that starts at Lord's.
And look, we're well into tennis season. We're not far off Wimbledon now. A bit of controversy here because at the All England Club they've got a big mural, right?
They do.
Up on the wall. And if we see it here, there'd be a lot of famous and some not so famous players. And there's an omission, a lot of the women like Billie Jean King or Chris Evert or, Martina Navratilova. Certainly not prominent that I can see here. What was this all about? What was this supposed to do, and what's the controversy?
It's a promotional piece of artwork, is what it is. It's promoting Wimbledon 2023, which begins in a couple of weeks. So you want some of the big names of the past, some of the names of the future. So Djokovic, I know you recognise Djokovic on there, and there's Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal is on there. The young Spanish wunderkind Carlos Alcaraz. There's Yannick Sinner. But the thing is, if you're going to have players of the past and players now, surely at Wimbledon you're going to have two-time winner Sir Andy Murray. Like we've got Sir Andy Murray snubbed.
He's not there.
Well, Jamie, his brother has seen it and said, well, this is ridiculous.
Well, Jamie could be there as well. He's a doubles winner, isn't he?
Of course. But I think just looking at the picture, surely it would be very easy to put that right, and then you can, whether they use Photoshop or whatever they do, and just stick Andy Murray in the front. But it's a bit of a strange oversight not to have Andy Murray in there, don't you think?
A bit of a snub, I agree with you, but, I suppose it's all business. It's all about saying we're relevant, we're pertinent, we're off the moment. But then Andy Murray's just won two tournaments, hasn't he?
Totally relevant. OK, he didn't do well in the Queen's Club, but he's going in to Wimbledon. He's still the one that everybody will want to see. Everybody's going to be behind. Stick Andy Murray in there. Sort it out, Wimbledon. It's crazy. Because you know about the AI thing. Have you heard about that as well?
Aye, the podcasts.
Yeah.
And so they're going to use a robot's voice or whatever to do commentary. I'm not exactly sure how that works or how a robot can tell what the action is or whatever. Right. But, I mean, again, we always say, people like ourselves, broadcasters, your jobs will be OK, they can't substitute you, but they can.
They can.
They can.
So with AI... the situation is that with the app, the Wimbledon app, is that if you want to look back on highlights of the day, it's not going to be a person that's commentating, it'll be an AI commentator. So it's we all know how scary it could be.
Where is this world going?
Well, it's the voice. Nobody knows. There's just a voice. If it was Dan Maskell, if it was John Barrett, that would be great if they could bring them back. And
so, the BBC, they have Today at Wimbledon, or they certainly used to have, where they reflect on the matches.
Did you do Wimbledon? Did you do Wimbledon?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did Queen's Club for 2 years.
Right.
Tennis there. But peripheral jobs. I mean, as a young reporter, you would do things like, it wasn't podcasts in those days.
Sure.
They had Wimbledon radio and all that sort of thing.
Which still goes on now,
But no, I just find it really quite scary and obscene that professionals are being done out of those jobs and they're given to a robot. I think the idea is you type in the script and then it reads the script.
I think what it does, is it algorithms again? There's a situation where the game would be played, and then the AI, whatever it is, can actually see what's a backhand, what's a forehand, who the player is, what the score is, so it would recognise the shots that are being played.
Would it have the emotion? Well, that's the
It
question.
won't. Of course it won't. That's the thing that's missing, and that's with anything. It's all about the emotion. Dan Maskell's. Oh, I see. I mean, you know, he wasn't overdone with emotion, but he always said the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
John Barrett, another great commentator.
Yeah.
You know, they said the right thing at the right time. This is just going to be, oh yeah, it's a backhand. Oh yeah, it's this. But who knows where it's going to go? It's pretty scary.
I don't think they do barley water anymore at Wimbledon.
Do they not do Robinson's barley water?
I think they've pulled out as sponsors. I might be wrong there.
You know, and also, I don't know whether you watch this as well, watch very carefully, is how tennis players deal with ball boys and girls. And you can tell when they're a decent person.
Yeah.
Even just like, it doesn't take much. You know, it could be seen as old-fashioned, but a please and a thank you. Sometimes it's like, Tal, give me this. And it's like, come on. If I was the ball boy, I'd say, yeah, are you forgetting something? Is there someone else you want to say? But, you know, there's a lot of that goes on. Also, interestingly, the world number 697 is going to be playing at Wimbledon.
Do you know who it is?
It's Venus Williams. Venus
Really?
Williams. Venus Williams, the world's 697. She's actually going to be playing. She's got a wild card. So 5-time winner. So she's got a 3-time winner. So she's going to be playing at Wimbledon this year.
Going along for the social experience, for the whole social aspect of it.
I'm number 613, by the way. So, I mean, I would be...
You're ahead of her.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Paul, thanks very much, mate. Thank you very much indeed. New balls, please. Stay with us as we reveal the Met Office's predictions for the summer weeks. Will it be a long, hot one? Freddie Gray and Emma Burnell, they're going through the papers. They'll tell you after this.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Let's go inside the newspapers with the Deputy Editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray, and the political consultant, Emma Burnell, for one last look at them this morning. And Freddie, extra heart attacks, according to the Mail, since the pandemic.
I'm afraid this is very... I bring you nothing but gloom today. Almost 100,000 people have died needlessly, say the Daily Mail. I don't know what dying needfully would be.
Yeah.
But since the start of the pandemic, that's about 500 extra heart attacks a week in Britain. And, well, the most obvious attribution is that it's because of the disruption to the health service, heart problems not getting noticed, ambulance services being disrupted, etc. That's caused it a lot. But there are also concerns about the effect COVID has on the heart, the stresses it puts on the heart. And there are concerns about the vaccine. I don't think that's just pure conspiracy talk. There are concerns that need to be investigated and not just dismissed as conspiracy. But I think the obvious and big factor is the disruption in the health service. But it's a huge level of people now dying. And just anecdotally, I know people who died of heart attacks, far more in recent years than...
Is that just because you're getting older, though, Freddie?
Possibly.
That does happen.
No, it's not of my peer group. I've noticed it. But maybe it's just coincidence, anecdotal evidence.
Well, just generally, health seems to have been badly impacted by the pandemic, and I think this is just the story of this era, really. Post-pandemic era is, rising cancer, drop in access to cancer.
Yeah, we had a couple of years
The
where
fruit
the
flies have heart attacks. That's the second one I've just got.
They don't need heart attacks. You get rid of them before they have a chance to...
There's the Eamonn attack. That's doing it.
So tell us about this attack then in Kenya. This is Del Monte. Del Monte, he's the man that said yes, isn't it? The fruit people.
Yeah, apparently he's been a little too permissive with his security guards, the man from Del Monte. There are real concerns, it's the front page of The Guardian, that they are being really quite violent with... they have a huge problem. There are a lot of people who are going in to try and steal from the Del Monte estate. They've employed security guards. They give them these clubs to arm themselves with, but there have been a number of deaths and maimings and quite excessive force that's been used, which is obviously leading to huge questions.
Protecting the plantation.
Protecting the plantation. So they've obviously got a right to protect that land. These are pineapples that are largely being sold abroad. With when you're buying pineapple in your local supermarket, it is almost certainly being provided from this plantation or those like it.
And people are killing over pineapples.
Over pineapples, yeah. And you've got... it's a complicated mix of things because you do have people whose livelihoods depend on protecting those pineapples. Other people's livelihoods probably depend on stealing those pineapples. And then there's these security forces in the middle, but they have been found to be using massively over excessive force, killing and maiming, and that obviously just can't, that they're not the police. They're private security. They don't have the right to go in and use that level of force.
Awful, shocking story.
Let's talk about the weather.
Yes.
Right, so the Times, page 7, they have a Met Office prediction for the summer weeks. What are they saying?
I think it's probably good news for anyone who's been struggling with the sweltering heat in the last few weeks, that we are probably not going to have a repeat of the heat wave of last year, the 40-degree heat wave. But it will be a hot summer, which is quite nice. So hopefully not too hot a summer, because I know I've been struggling to sleep in these conditions. I think London is difficult.
London's grim in the heat, isn't it?
I'm so lucky. I have a semi-basement flat, so it's warm in winter and cool in the summer. But even that flat, which I sleep under a duvet every single night, 365 days a year, even that, during the height of the 40 degrees, during the day, it became unbearable, even there. And yeah, and you just wonder how people are getting anything done. It's just so difficult.
My kids sleep in the attic, what would be an attic floor, and
it's awful.
Every night with wet flannels they're going to sleep on them because they're just boiling. No covers, just in their pants. They're just so
it hits.
And then yes, we have that with our children where they're exhausted. They're just wandering around like zombies all the time because they just don't get any sleep.
any sleep on things.
Right, OK, so that's... but the good news about that is that will mean less of these awful brush fires, and all these things that goes on.
You had Holly on earlier from Epping, and I live near Epping Forest, and there were real incidents, really worrying incidents with fires there last year, and people really have been quite stupid about barbecues and things.
Okay.
One thing about the weather, we had obviously a very, very wet March, wetter than normal, and then we've had this gorgeous weather ever since. It's a great year for roses. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah, my roses are doing great business.
Look magnificent.
I can't stop. And
yeah. I wish I could tell you what type of rose we have in the garden. My wife knows, but I do not know the...
So a rose doesn't require a lot of water, does it not?
It's apparently, I don't know why, it's just been a good season, a bumper season for roses, and I've really noticed them everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really stunning.
OK. A lot of people, they have these streaming services. A lot of them are unnecessary. There are too many of them. A lot of them are very costly. Amazon Prime is one, and I think you can get Amazon Prime if you subscribe, if you have an Amazon account.
Yes, well, there's long been a lot of concern about Amazon Prime because a lot of people sort of opted into it without really knowing that they have been opted into it. And it's actually quite difficult to cancel your subscription. Anyway, and in the US, the trade body are taking Amazon to court over this. And hopefully they will make the process a little bit easier to cancel, because I think a lot of people feel a bit ripped off by it. That said, I like Amazon Prime a lot.
I do.
I like the next day delivery.
Yeah, next day delivery, and also Prime TV. I've been absolutely binging a show on Prime TV recently, Below Deck, and
I love Below Deck.
I love Below Deck so much.
Everybody loves Below Deck.
It's so good. Oh my God.
If you want to watch the less awful version of it, there's one on a yacht. So at least it's got a sail. It feels a little bit less tacky.
Yep.
Right. No, you want the
No, you want the tack.
Yeah.
The guests with more money than sense, and certainly more money than taste. And the way that the staff talk about them behind the scenes is so funny. It's so brilliant.
Have an offer
so I am very happy to pay my £5 or whatever it is a month for Below Deck, and it's worth every penny.
See, the trouble is when I watch it, when I get a series that I like, and one of you, if I was to recommend it to one of you, unless it's on Channel 4 or Channel 5, I can't remember what channel it's on.
And that is the problem these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I have an internet-enabled TV, so I can just talk into my remote control and say, "Get me Below Deck," or
"Get me Below Deck right now."
I'm at the other end of the spectrum. I'm also watching I, Claudius, the 1970s show. So I'm trying to mix it up a little bit.
The brain rot.
So do you actually, without knowing the channel, you can actually say
I can just say the name of a TV show and it will bring it up.
And it finds the channel for you.
It finds the channel for me.
But you've got a very smart interactive television, don't you?
I do. I've got a Sky Glass, which is great, actually.
See, when I go and visit my brother, he does that. He talks into TV, and he wouldn't be the most tech person there is. And I think this is fascinating. He does this, and I don't. But the thing is that my brother's a very heavy Belfast accent, and he goes, and I said, well, I couldn't possibly understand a word that he just said there. But it'll find Eamonn and Isabel on.
I do have to make sure my diction is less East End than it sometimes falls into.
Telephone voice. But you both had the same upbringing, but one brother's sounds different from another. I find that. So you have a telly voice then?
Oh, yes.
You put this on for the telly?
Well, it's not that I put it on, but, I mean, if you think I have a broad accent now, I mean, Ruth always says to me, which one of your brothers were you talking to on the phone then? I said, how do you know I was talking to one of my brothers? Because your voice went all different. So you do, I suppose you do tend...
I've never met any of your brothers. I would very much like to
they speak very fast. Very fast and very, very all together. So,
brilliant.
You're the girl you are.
Gosh.
No,
maybe
thanks, guys. Really appreciated having you around today. Thank you very much indeed. Freddie Gray and Emma Burnell. Brendan Cox, the widower of the MP Joe Cox, the Labour MP, who was shot and stabbed to death by a far-right extremist 7 years ago, is remarrying.
Yes, it's an interesting discussion point now. Is it possible to find love after loss? We're speaking to the CEO and founder of the Good Grief Trust, Linda Magistris. Good morning to you, Linda. I'm sure most people would hope to find love again after the trauma of losing a partner, but I suppose the question is, how soon is too soon?
Well, I think the main word in that sentence is hope. We all hope that we can move forward with our life. We don't move on. We move forward to try and find a new life when you've particularly lost somebody that is absolutely the main person in your life and you absolutely adored them, and sometimes you think there is no hope and there's no purpose. But here at the Good Grief Trust, please do find us. First of all, we have 900 plus charities and support services under our umbrella for anyone who's suffered a bereavement under any circumstance anywhere in the country. So yes, there is always hope, but it is of course very, very difficult because there's so many different feelings, but there should never be any rules, any judgment around how you find that new person in your life. Sometimes it's incredibly awkward because we might be married to that person and there may be in-laws or family or friends that potentially might say it's too soon, but when is too soon? It's really up to you. Exactly. If you have children, again, there's another layer of that sort of guilt potential, that burden. But what do we do? Do it our way.
Yeah, Brendan Cox talks about, how he consulted his children on this. And you, Linda, have been through all of this yourself. You've lost a partner. I don't know if you have moved on. I don't know if you want to talk about that, if you have or haven't. But you used the word there. I think judgment is very interesting. It doesn't really matter what you think or whatever. It seems to be what other people think or what label they will put on you. No one feels your pain. No one walks in your shoes.
No, absolutely. Yes, I lost my partner, Graham, 8.5 years ago to cancer, which is exactly why I started the Good Grief Trust, because I couldn't find the right type of support. And just to say, there is the most incredible charity for anyone under 51 who's lost a partner. It's called Widowed and Young. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to meet other people, and not potentially just for dating, but just to find other people who you can connect with and just know that those feelings that you're feeling are completely normal and you're not going crazy. And that's really number one. But yes, it's wonderful that Brendan's found new love, and it's lovely that he asked his children first, which is probably clearly the best way that he needed to do it. But we need to do it our way. And as we know, grief is completely unique and it's absolutely up to us. There should be no judgment. We have many, many posters and quotes and we put them out. And one of them says, just because I'm smiling doesn't mean that I'm not grieving. So we can find joy, and that can sit alongside the pain of grief. We've got to find hope for a way forward, and there is hope.
Is there any truth, or do the statistics still bear this out, that, when these things, whether it's a divorce or whether it's the death of a loved one, that men actually very, very quickly replace partners as opposed to women who can sometimes never fill that spot?
That's because men are often more emotionally attached, aren't they? Men are soft creatures where women are harder. And they don't need the sort of comfort that we tend to need. That's it.
Let's get the expert opinion.
And we're judged derogatory because I'm just saying. I know what I'm really saying that, Linda, is that if it happened to me, I wouldn't like to be alone.
I think, to be honest, Eamonn, that's the thought of a lot of men. A lot of men really do need that company. They need that companionship, and they need it quite quickly. You're right. When we have lots of events, men often feel, and they articulate, that they really do need to find a partner quite quickly, whereas women do take much longer because they need to process it. And also, women are very good at talking. We can talk out our thoughts and our feelings and all those emotions, whereas men tend to bottle it up as well. So yes, there is a definite divide there. But I think by coming together, there are peer support groups, for example. There are things you can just go and have a cup of coffee with someone, go and play bowls with someone. We can get people together with groups, and that can often really help just to normalise your feelings and then finally find potential love again. But, you know, it's not for everybody. It's absolutely up to you how you live your life. But yes, I think the main thing is just to do it slowly and carefully, because you are very vulnerable when you're grieving. It's an exhaustive process. You know, it's going to last the rest of your life. You know, grief is not an event.
I love how Deborah James, who died nearly a year ago, in the next sort of 10 days or so, isn't it? She knew she was going to die. She wanted her husband to move on, but she gave him a list of people who were banned. And I think that's a great way to go.
OK. Linda, really appreciate what you had to say. The founder, Linda, is of the Good Grief Trust, and they offer so many services if you've sadly lost someone. Thank you very much indeed.
Stay with us. Lots more coming your way, including your forecast with Aidan McGibbon.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's another bright, sunny start for many of us today, and it's going to be another very warm one, especially towards the southeast. As the warmth builds, again, a few showers will develop, but fewer, and certainly fewer thunderstorms compared with recent days. Many places will actually have a dry day, especially if you're in the north, Central Belt northwards across Scotland, or in the far south and southeast. Plenty of sunny skies continuing. In between, especially through this central swathe of the UK, the Midlands into northern England, East Wales, there will be some fairly lively showers developing, even some thunderstorms. Away from the showers, mid to high 20s, 29 in London, low 20s for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Then any showers that do develop will die away as the sun goes down, and then clear spells for many overnights. But what we're seeing over the next few days actually is an increase in humidity coming up from the south and southwest. So it's a muggier night, a more uncomfortable night for sleeping compared with recent nights, 16 to 18 Celsius in the south, 13 or 14 further north. And for Western Scotland, Northern Ireland, a cloudy start to Friday. Outbreaks of rain from the word go. This is showery rain. That'll be on and off, but there'll be some heavier bursts indicated by the bright colours there moving through Northern Ireland and southwest Scotland into Friday. That rain eventually reaching parts of Cumbria as well as West Wales by the end of the afternoon. Ahead of that, 1 or 2 showers possible for East Anglia, but otherwise actually plenty of sunshine for central and eastern areas, and again 29 Celsius the expected high, whilst it'll feel a bit cooler, although still quite humid for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Scotland and Northern Ireland will continue to be affected by weather fronts moving up from the southwest into the weekend. Some persistent rain at times. This also occasionally affecting Northern England and North Wales. With that changeable weather, temperatures will be at around the low to mid-20s, but towards the south and southeast, those temperatures will get even higher, up to 30 or 31 Celsius.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in their home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
So Jubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time is running out in the hunt for the Titanic sub as the Coast Guard says he has hope he can save those on board.
Hello there, very good morning to you. 1 minute past 9 on this Thursday, the 22nd of June. Hope it's a good day where you are. You're listening and watching Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The search for the missing Titan submersible reaches a critical moment as estimates suggest the air supply on board could run out in 1 hour's time. A French robot sub that can dive to 6,000 metres has arrived in the area and could be the last hope for those on board.
Warnings that a recession is now inevitable as the Bank of England prepares to hike interest rates for the 13th consecutive time. They will do that later today. The Foreign Secretary told us on this programme bringing down inflation is the main focus for the government.
We're not going to be absolutely identical to other countries around the world, of course not. But we're all seeing those inflationary pressures. The Prime Minister is committed to bringing those interest rates down, halve those interest rates this year, to grow the economy, to reduce debt. This is absolutely the economic focus of the government.
This hour we're asking, are you a follower of the no wash movement as many forgo cleaning their clothes to save time, money and to help the environment? We'll speak to 2 experts who tell us how often you should be scrubbing your smalls.
Do you go more than 2 days?
I mean, I think it's disgusting not to wash your clothes every day, just to say, as in your smalls. I think there's some things you can go a bit longer, like your jumpers.
Yeah.
Your undergarments.
No.
Definitely every day.
Twice a day.
My dad at boarding school, they used to wear them inside out. Once they
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, but
Save
do you know
matron.
what I always say? You assume you apply your own standards to everyone else. You think that that's your standard and that's applied to everyone else. You'll be surprised.
There's a lot of
You'll be
filthy
surprised.
people out there.
Dirty beasts.
Let us know if you're one of them. GBViews at gbnews.com, or you can tweet us at GBNews.
Right, the no wash movement. How often should you wash your clothes and your undergarments? We're doing that about 9:15 this morning. This is our top story.
Yes, and it is that race to rescue those trapped on board the Titanic submersible as estimates for the oxygen supply run at around another hour today.
So the search is currently focused on a point in the North Atlantic Ocean where the sound of banging was detected. A French vessel carrying a state-of-the-art underwater robot is on its way to the area.
Well, earlier we spoke to a retired commander of the Royal Australian Navy, also a submarine rescue expert, Frank Owen, and we asked if he felt positive about the deployment of ROVs.
What I'm concerned about is that there's an assumption that remotely operated vehicles will be able to hear these noises, and that's almost invariably not the case. I've never yet seen a remotely operated vehicle that's equipped with a passive hydrophone, and you need to have ears, passive ears in this sense, to be able to hear. So the ROVs are very useful once you've actually localized, which you need to do with some sort of sensor like a sonar buoy or a submarine, to be able to actually localize where the sound is coming from in a latitude and longitude, if you like. If it's then on the bottom, these ROV, the remotely operated vehicle, can go and start looking for it using its own active sonar, and that would be an imaging type sonar, and or cameras. But even the cameras, they have to operate using the lights that it has, and that's like driving in the fog with all the backscatter. So there's a number of things against them, and of course, as you say, the time's running out.
Time is running out and we're on a terrible countdown. We hope that good news will come very, very shortly. The man who's been following all of this for us in the studio today, Paul Hawkins. Paul, what can you tell us?
So we've been tracking the L'Atalante. That's the French ship carrying this state-of-the-art French ROV, which means remotely operated vehicle. We've been tracking it on a website called marinetraffic.com. I don't know if we can bring that up now. And we're going to zoom in, hopefully, if we can get up. There it is. So there it is in the Atlantic. And if we actually have a look in, if we zoom in on the area, bear with us, because we're new to this as well. But you can see, hopefully, the ships in the area. And if we just push in a little bit more, you can see the Polar Prince, I think that's at the top left, the Polar Prince.
The Polar Prince, yeah, there's 7 of them there.
Yeah, and then just to the north of that is the L'Atalante, I think, to the north of the Polar Prince. And that's arriving in the area, and then just to the southeast of the Polar Prince, that's where the wreckage of the Titanic is. So all these ships converging on the area at the moment.
Within a mile or two of each other. Those big distances we're looking at there?
Not in nautical terms, no. They're not big distances, so they're definitely in the area at the moment. I mean, the reports were that it was going to arrive Wednesday afternoon, so I think the fact it's there already is pretty good. And of course, time is running out. These are approximations in terms of the oxygen levels. We were looking at 10 hours, which would have taken us to about 2 o'clock this afternoon. If they can stretch it out later in the afternoon, this evening. How can
they stretch it out?
By regulating the amount they're breathing, keeping their breathing really shallow.
It's incredibly difficult to do if you're panicking, which inevitably they must be at this stage.
Yeah, but what's this? This was Sunday morning that this started. Sunday morning UK time that this started. By now, down there would have coached the Pakistani father and son who are who live in the UK. They would not be experienced explorers. They would have coached them into. The immediate priority would have been: we need to tell people where we are, and we need to conserve oxygen. So you need to start breathing. With shallow breathing patterns, minimise the amount of CO2 that you can exhale, and then they'll also try to clean the air as well. So you would have hoped that by now they would have got used to breathing, in a more shallow fashion to try and minimise the CO2 that they're exhaling.
Goodness me. So that means it's an approximate time then that we think this clock is counting down to. The Coast Guard adamant that this is still a search and rescue, not a search and recovery.
Yeah.
But the problem is these underwater searching vessels and indeed all the ships in the area, not many of them have the capability, if they are lucky enough to find this needle in a haystack, to be able to bring it up to the surface, which is the only way to save their lives.
Yeah, there's very few that can do it. We do know that there is a US Navy wreckage vessel on the way as well. The hope is that now the L'Atalante is in the area, they can deploy the Victor along with the other ROVs, remotely operated vehicles that are searching around the area. They can spot it, and in the very, very small closing window that there is left, they can use the robotic arms to either free it or attach a cable from the wreckage vessel on the surface to the submersible, and then try and essentially pull it back to the surface. Gosh. That's the only hope they've got, really. But first of all, they've got to locate it.
Fingers crossed and everything else. Thank you very much indeed, Paul. Any news, Paul will be straight back in delivering that to us. Thank you very much indeed. 9:09.
Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
And the King says the Windrush generation has made a significant difference to Britain. The anchor of the ship which brought the first of the Windrush generation to this country 75 years ago will be recovered and put on display in honour of Windrush Day, which is today.
Convenience stores are urging the police to create a most wanted list of thieves as thefts from shops reach record levels. Over 1.1 million theft incidents were reported last year, according to the Association of Convenience Stores.
Despite heavy rain in Glastonbury, festival goers remain undeterred as they start arriving at the world-famous music event. Those arriving in Somerset today could experience travel disruption because of the wet weather, but the skies are set to clear before music is underway tomorrow.
Now, we're talking about all things financial this morning, about the state of the economy. Lots of warnings. Recession is now inevitable amid predictions that the Bank of England could today raise interest rates by up to 0.5%.
OK, that would be the bank's 13th consecutive rise, and it comes as inflation remains high at 8.7%. Despite predictions, it would come down.
Well, earlier we spoke to the Foreign Secretary, who told us it was the government's focus to reduce inflation.
The Prime Minister is committed to bringing those interest rates down, halve those interest rates this year, to grow the economy, to reduce debt. This is absolutely the economic focus of the government, and we will be taking action to drive those things forward. And I think it is the duty of government. We are relentlessly focused on that.
We talk about the squeeze, we talk about what you're giving up in the cost of living crisis. Linda says, I refuse to pay unreasonable increases at the supermarkets, which are everywhere. I just buy the basics, vegetables, mostly chicken for main meals, cereals and fruit for breakfast, leave the pre-packed ready meals on the shelves and buy bare essentials as far as I'm concerned.
Amanda in Northampton says this: I just wanted to say it's not all doom and gloom. My fixed rate finishes at the end of November, and my current lender has offered me a new fixed deal of 4.42%. So bear in mind, we're thinking about that it could go up significantly today to perhaps as much as 5%. And she says that will not kick in until her existing fixed rate ends. So bit of positivity or even balance.
Yeah, people are talking about doing deals, you know, striking a bargain with telecoms companies, with streaming providers, that sort of thing as well. And people saying we got a much better deal with the disconnection department when it gets to that stage. Yeah.
Well, keep your thoughts coming in. Let us know how you are coping with all of these crises coming at the same time. We're seeing energy bills, food in the shops, and now rent and mortgages just sky high. It is incredibly difficult out there, and recession on the horizon. So how are you coping, and how concerned are you?
Well, let's see how they're going to cope at 9:30 this morning. That's when you'll have To The Point here on GB News. Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner to tell us what's coming up. Hello.
Well, it's a big day today.
Hello.
Interest rates, we'll know at noon, definitely going up. It's whether it's 0.25%, 0.5%, misery for millions of people.
We can't hear a word.
Small businesses.
Terrifying.
And we're going to get political reaction from Tories because they're very unhappy about it. And they're very unhappy with the Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey.
Yeah. We're also going to be, of course, looking at the Windrush anniversary today. We're going to be talking to a Tory MP whose family arrived here on the Windrush boat.
And, of course, the latest on the search for the Don't need Webster to remind you, time is fast running out. Yeah. It's thought the oxygen supplies could go around midday, so we're all over that story too.
Yeah.
Well, see, somebody's cutting back on Andrew's mic. That's the second time this week. Somebody's decided we'll not pay for that. So we couldn't hear a word you said, Andrew. Bev was very entertaining, though. Very, very good.
But we will have them loud and clear from 9:30 on To The Point. But
hopefully.
Stay with us this morning. We're asking, should you wash your clothes after every use? Or are we all guilty as a society of overwashing?
Why are we even asking this question? Goodness me.
Apparently it's bad.
Okay. We'll get a view after this.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The people's channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions, and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio, and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Look, here's a question for you. Do you need to wash your T-shirts, your jeans, your jumpers, indeed, may I say, your tights, your pants, your bra, every time you wear them? Why am I even asking that question?
Well, apparently more and more of us are shunning the washing machine to save time, money, and also the environment.
Okay, I don't like when you say more and more of us, more and more of you, because I wash everything. I do think I make the exception with pullovers and jumpers and things.
Oh, you don't wash everything then, do you? You're going to wash this suit after one wear today?
Well, my suits get regularly dry cleaned.
But not every day. So you're just as bad as everybody else. We're talking about this one. Let's talk to the TV personality and cleaning guru, Aggie McKenzie, who thinks we should wash, actually, a little bit less. Meanwhile,
there she is, the queen of clean, Lindsay Crombie. Thinks that, well, you should just be scrubbing all the time. You should be doing these things. Lindsay, what I would say about that, like, I tend to be in your camp, right? But I think when I was a child, it was my mother would have done hand washing and would have had a mangle, and everything would have been harder to do. A washing machine makes it easier, and therefore does that make us lazier or less aware of the environment and the cost?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. My nan had a mangle. I remember it in her garden. And do you know what? If we had mangles these days, we definitely would not be washing as much as we are today. But I think as long as you do your washing sensibly, you know, you use eco cycles, you use the correct amount of products, you don't overuse, so you're not wasting money. You do cold washes, you ditch fabric conditioner for white vinegar, and you're just mindful. Like my son coming home from school in this weather has always got a mark on his collar. That's a sweat mark. There's no way on this planet he's going to wear that shirt again to school tomorrow. So I think it's just about being mindful. And like you said, with jumpers and suits, you don't need to wash them after every use. But if you've been on the tube, I was on the tube earlier in the week. I sat on a chair and I felt disgusting. And there's no way those trousers would have sat on this couch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I think it's just about being mindful.
Yeah, it's when my husband comes in from the tube and sits on the side of the children's bed to give them a kiss goodnight. And I'm like, get off that bed with your dirty trousers. But you think, get rid of your fabric conditioner and use white wine vinegar. Would that not stink?
Yeah,
I love the smell of my fabric conditioner. It's up there with the top 5 things I love most in the world.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. We all like our washing to smell good, but if you want to be more mindful towards the environment, white vinegar is a natural disinfectant. It's a great replacement. It will keep your towels soft and fluffy, keep your clothes in good condition. So it's definitely a switch to save money.
Aggie, if you're not in favour of all of this, I mean, I know you well, and I've been beside you lots of times, no sense of an odour, you're all very clean woman. So how do you keep so fragrant?
Oh, well, actually, broadly speaking, I agree with Lindsay, but I just think that people should wash less. I think they should be much more mindful about tossing stuff in the machine. And, you know, like your mother, my mother was like super clean. She did the washing once a week. Once a week. We used to, wear basically the same clothes every day. And she would be spot cleaning with, little damp cloth. And that's fine. I think kids' clothes get washed far, far too much. People just toss things in the machine without actually thinking. And I think, given today the environmental problems, the cost of energy, even the cost of detergent, the cost of water, we need to cut down all those things and wash much less. Okay, I think we should be washing our underwear daily, at least not washing it daily, but changing it daily. But everything else can be worn time and time again.
Sorry,
no problem.
So what's the distinction you're making between not necessarily washing it, but changing it? So you could wear pants again, but just not...
Yeah,
no, you'd wear jeans.
No. What I'm saying is change your underwear every day, but don't put a wash on that's got just a few things in it. You need to be filling up your washing machine before you actually turn it on. And other things like outerwear, like, for instance, your suit. I mean, you could hang that outside and have it, air cleaned, or you can steam clean things as well without sending them to the dry cleaners or putting them in the washing machine, and also do more hand washing as well. People forget that they can hand wash. They just think, oh, the machine's there, I'll toss it in, and they wonder why their electricity bills are so high.
Yeah.
What about short wash, though? Is that all right? 15-minute cycle or whatever you can. The quickest cycle going. That's better, isn't it? Haven't got time to hand wash.
Yeah, I think if you're doing these short washes on low temperatures, what happens is that you end up with a smelly washing machine. Because if you're washing, say, underwear or towels or sheets that have a heavy bacterial load, if you wash those items at low temperatures, all that's happening is that the bacteria are multiplying in their millions because of the heat and the humidity, and you end up with a nasty smelling washing machine and clothes that aren't properly clean.
Oh.
Yeah, when you think about all of these things, yeah.
Well, is to do a hot wash or to run an empty wash with a cup of clear vinegar in it.
You see, I look at you two, and Lindsay, the both of you side by side there. The thing is, I don't know what you smell like, but you both look clean. You both look well groomed and clean.
You smell all right? Do I smell all right?
Yes.
No.
We just need to be much, as Lindsay says, we just need to be much more mindful about using our machines. We need to save money, save the water, save the environment, and just wash less.
Lindsay,
think about what you're washing before you wash it.
What about the dreaded Febreze instead of a wash? You get it out and you squirt your T-shirt with some Febreze to mask the smell.
No way. I agree with what Aggie said there. You know, take the suit jacket, hang it on the washing line, let the fresh air blow through it, or steam clean it. I love cleaning with steam. A quick steam, garment steamer, you know, up the window overnight, perfect. And that's what I do, like with my son's blazer after school, hang it on the washing line for 10 minutes.
See, but Mrs. Hinch, I'm sure Mrs. Hinch, who's the, you know, another cleaning guru, much like you two, she always talks about the science of Febreze and how it does actually, like, eat the odour. Is that nonsense?
I think it's each to their own. It's personal choice, and I'd rather not spray my kids' clothes with chemicals, if I'm honest with you.
Go.
Yeah, so there's a whole environmental side to all of this as well. But I suppose the big enemy for all of us, Lindsay, is time. You know, you are amazing, but people will do anything to save time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I think, you know, as Aggie said, you know, wait till you've got that full load, be sensible like that. But, you know, if you are in a busy household with, you know, maybe 6 children, 2 adults, you are going to need to do that daily load. But just make sure, you know, get it in the morning, you know, get it out in the evening, you know, put it away, you know, sort of plan a bit of a schedule. You know, it's easy if you know how to do it. You know, it's about being organised. No one's got any time anymore. We're all so busy. No one sits still, but it's just about being super organised.
OK, guys, thanks for your advice. Thank you both for your fragrance coming through the screen to both of us this morning. Appreciate it there, Aggie and Lindsay.
That's it from Eamonn and from me. Stephen and Anne will be back from 6 o'clock tomorrow.
OK, up next, Beverly and Andrew. To the point. Have a good day.
Thank you both. Thank you. Yeah, obviously America and Canada are waking up as we are on air, so we're going to see if there's any news from that Titan sub we've been following all week.
It's because we think there's probably only hours left before the oxygen supplies run low, so it really is a terrible cliche, but it really is a race against time. Interest rates, we know they're going up. We're going to get the decision at noon. We'll be getting political reaction to that and assessing how that's going to impact on families, small businesses.
Yeah, Liam Halligan will be here to explain how that might affect all of us. And also, it's the Windrush anniversary today. We're going to be talking to a Conservative MP whose family arrived here on the boat.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up.